All right, welcome. This is the Newport Board of Selectmen's meeting for July 19th, 2021. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Herb, anything?
Well, Jenna's here in person. I don't know if we want to move her.
Yes, I would say, I was going to consider moving her up to just after the public hearing.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
John?
I'm good, thank you.
Keith?
No, I'm all set.
Barry?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. All right, and I am set. Hunter, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, public hearing, Town of Newport, Board of Selectmen, public notice, Community Development Block Grant. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Newport, New Hampshire will hold 2 consecutive public hearings on Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. at the Newport Town Offices at 15 Sunapee Street, Newport, New Hampshire, to hear public comment on a proposed Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, application to the Community Finance Authority, CDFA. Up to $500,000 annually is available to municipalities or counties on a competitive basis for economic development projects, housing, and public facility projects, and emergency activities. Up to $25,000 is available for feasibility study grants. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. The proposals to be heard include a proposed CDBG application for up to $500,000 to fund the replacement of the Riverbend wastewater pump station, and a review and adoption of Newport's residential anti-displacement and relocation plan for the proposed project. Interested persons are invited to attend and comment on the proposed application and planning documents. Please contact the Town of Newport, 15 Sunapee Street, Newport, New Hampshire, 03773 at 603-863-1877, 5 days in advance if you need assistance to attend or participate in the hearing. Anyone wishing to submit written comments should address them to the Town Manager, Town of Newport, 15 Sunapee Street, Newport, New Hampshire, 03773. And this was posted in the Town Office Building, Richard Street Library, Sullivan County Commissioner's Office, and on the town website. All right, we have a script to follow here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Christine. And before we do that, Hunter, have we received any written comments?
Not that we're aware of, no.
Okay. All right.
You read your portion.
Okay, actually, I was, next sheet is for the second one. So Christine, you want to speak to this then?
Yes, so the purpose of the public hearings required for CDBG funding is to solicit the view of citizens on community development and furnish them with information concerning the amount of funds available and the range of community development activities which may be undertaken under the Community Development Act. The proposal to be considered tonight is a CDBG grant application for up to $500,000 in CDBG funds for the replacement of the Riverbend.
Okay.
And the actual project will fund there was an emergency grant 2 years ago that funded the replacement of the generator. This project will fund the replacement of the entire pump station.
Okay, and what is the purpose of this pump station to the town? How does it benefit the town?
Pretty importantly, it cleans takes in all of the wastewater for the entire, what side of town?
East side?
East side of town,
Okay.
and all of our major businesses.
So pretty much
If it stopped
everything on
working-
Sunapee Street and
Yeah, if it stopped working, all of the waste would flow into the Sugar River. It would be catastrophic.
right, and certainly people should not be flushing their toilets, and some of our industry along Sunapee Street may have to shut down
Correct.
pending repairs and replacement of the components there. Okay. Todd, do you have anything you want to add about the condition of the pump station? Todd Cartier, Director of Public Works.
Yeah, I mean, it's been in place since 1980s. It's overdue, coming to be replaced. We had an assessment done with the engineering firms when we looked at the generator replacement. And the idea would be to get everything now is down 30 feet in the ground now, all the controls, so every time if there's an issue with the pump, we have to send men down below grade, 30 feet down in, just to access it, and bring it all up to a safer location.
And this would be replacing the pump itself, or just the impeller assembly?
So the reconfiguration of the pump station,
Okay.
using the wet wells that are currently in place. And the section that has the pumps and the controls would be essentially filled in, closed in.
Yes, and so all of our existing pumps would be replaced, and as Todd is indicating, it would be a different configuration, but all the old pump equipment would be replaced. It's now 40 years old. Our engineers tell me that they cannot assure us that they can even find parts.
Okay.
And not only does it shut down the industrial heart of the town, everything west of that location, if that pump failed, east of that location, sorry, there's some fairly substantial residential users of the system in that direction. And as Todd just mentioned, it's a wet well system, and so if it failed, effluent would eventually fill the well and overtop the well and be in the Sugar River, depending on the circumstances, within hours.
Which is just across Sunapee Street from where the...
Yes, or
pump
actually,
is.
it's actually within feet behind it as well. It comes around behind it and crosses under the highway. So it would be a pretty substantial economic and environmental issue in short order. I mean, it would be a matter of hours before we'd be in that kind of trouble.
And I just wanted to add, DES, we've been speaking with them, and it is considered a public health danger if something was to happen, so the entire region, so that an issue is pressing.
Is there a match on this?
So that is one of the things that is going to be following. With the American Rescue Plan Act, we were hoping that a portion of that could be used as our match.
Okay. How much of a match is required for this?
20%, 20%, I believe. It's, the total project is 800,000. CDBG, you can get up to 500,000. So our match would have to be 300,000.
Okay. So we'd be looking for other sources for the 300,000, which would meet the 20% match.
Correct.
Okay.
And we have prospects for that match lined up.
Right. In order to do this work, would the system have to be down for a while? About how long would?
No, they would remain in operation.
Okay. So the
They
new.
would set up temporary bypass pumps.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this public hearing? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
All right. Anyone have anything else to add? In that case, I will close public hearing number 1. And we'll move on to the second public hearing. Review and adoption of Newport
Yeah,
Select.
I believe you have to make a motion.
Make a motion, Jeff.
We do.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do.
So I propose the following to support submission of the CDBG application for up to $500,000 to replace Riverbend wastewater pump station, and to authorize the town manager to sign and submit and execute any documents that may be necessary to effectuate the CDBG application and contract.
And we have a second from John. Marge, you get that?
Yes, I did, and may I request that instead of the town manager, that I write in town manager Hunter F. Duisberg?
Sure.
You good with that too?
Sure.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussions about this? All right, since this is for federal money, let's take a roll call vote. Herb?
Aye.
John?
Yes.
Keith?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye also. Now we can move on to the next part. And the board will now open public hearing number 2 on the adoption of the anti-displacement and relocation plan for this project.
All right, so the anti-displacement and relocation plan for this project basically states that the Uniform Relocation Act must be followed, which requires that any displaced household or business in a project using federal funds must find comparable housing in a comparable neighborhood at a comparable price. There will be no displacement, however, due to this project, so it will not be in effect, but we do need to have it listed. Under the certification section of the application, the town will certify that the residential anti-displacement and relocation plan is in place, and in the event that it is discovered that this specific project does displace persons or households, the implementation plan will be submitted to the CDFA prior to obligating or expending any funds. And I have extras if anybody would like a copy of the actual anti-displacement plan.
It's pretty much the same as last year.
It's exactly the same, yes.
Okay.
All right. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
All right. In that case, I will close public hearing number 2. Barry, you want to?
Yeah, I propose the following motion to adopt the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for this project.
Second.
Second from Herb. Any discussion? All right, let's try another roll call vote. Herb?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. All right,
Thank you.
you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay. All right, moving on, out of order. We will invite School Board Chair Jenna Darling to give us an update on what's going on up the street besides the new field hockey field.
Yes, that's on my list. Thank
Okay.
you guys for having me and putting me on the agenda and moving it.
As I told you before, anytime you want to come in, you're welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so I have a list here to go over. The first I wanted to talk about was summer school and the summer camps. Our middle school and CTE camps have wrapped up for the summer, and we're kind of smack in the middle of summer school. We have about 151 students right now that are in summer school across the district. I think that's really important. I don't think we pretend that there wasn't any loss due to students having remote learning. For example, there's 35 of our high school students that are taking credit recovery and foundation classes. We changed our policy a while back where just because you have completed your freshman year does not mean that you are now a sophomore. You have to have X number of credits in order to move on. And so if we have some students that are really close, having the ability to take these classes in the summer is important for them to keep them on track. We have 9 positions left that we're looking to still fill in the district. We have 1 elementary teacher and 1 library media specialist and 1 elementary school counselor, a middle school computer science teacher, a high school math teacher, a high school health teachers, and 3 special ed teachers and case manager. As Jeff pointed out, there's been tremendous amount of work going on in the district if you drive around. The first is the roof on the old portion of Richards was leaking, and that roof has been replaced. We have the field hockey field has been replaced. We had new irrigation put in to take the runoff from the mountain there, and new sod and irrigation was put in, and this means that our field hockey team will be able to come back onto the Newport campus to play, which was very important to us. In addition to that, at the last meeting, the Lovely family was very generous and to donate $25,000 in honor of the late Peter Lovely Sr., and that money will go towards renaming the field hockey field as Veterans Field, and it will be marked with a stone monument. And we're going to work on landscaping with Deb Stevens at the high school to really make that a really lovely area. There's also going to be signage around the new scoreboard on the football field to indicate past football championships that have been won and will be won. And also the Newport Lions Club has offered to cover expenses to have a bronze plaque in honor of Mr. Lovely for his dedication to the country and the community, as well as some landscaping in that area too. So we're looking forward to having that completed. That field has been resodded when I spoke to Ed, our business administrator, this morning. So I believe it's just some cleanup work that needs to be done now, and then those beautification projects. There's also the middle school soccer field, which is the location of the old tennis courts. Before my time here in town, there was less than an inch of loam there, and it was really a safety hazard for the kids to be playing soccer on. So again, new sod and irrigation is going to be laid with all of the rain. It was delayed. Hopefully it will be finished next week, allowing time for the sod to catch before fall. The locker rooms in the high school, as well as 8 bathrooms, are being updated in middle high school. All of these improvements are centered around making those facilities more handicap accessible. Particularly the boys' locker room has shown up on our accreditation report several times. So it will be nice to cross this box off to get it done. I wanted to talk just very briefly about school. I don't want to say reopening. We were open. We don't need to reopen, but coming back in the fall, the district and the board are still working on this. The plan right now is to have masks be optional for students and staff. We obviously have to keep an eye on any variant that maybe spikes here in the county, but we are planning for school to look a little bit closer to normal this fall. But stay tuned for that for more in the August meetings. And lastly, I wanted to talk about end of the year financials. I spoke with Ed this afternoon. So in the last budget cycle, we anticipated that the district would be able to return about $500,000 back in order to reduce taxes. And with the vote last March, there was a projected tax increase of approximately $1.38. So currently the revenue surplus for the district is just over $288,000. There's also a budget surplus of $404,996. So Ed has worked very diligently to exceed that $500,000 promise, and that nearly $700,000 he feels confident will wipe out the tax impact on the school side later this fall. He did ask me to point out that he doesn't know how likely that is to happen next year. We'll see. A lot of what we've been able to do has been because of COVID and grant monies that have come into the district. He did also want me to talk about the upcoming CTE renovation plan. The committee is still meeting regularly. For those that don't know, Newport is up to be able to take advantage of this renovation where the state can pay up to 75% of the costs, and the remaining 25% would need to come to the community. But Jenna Polinsky, the director at the CTE Center, and Ed are working very diligently to reduce that cost as much as possible for the community. They are trying to do things like use some of our ESSER funds that we've received to cover the HVAC needs that would be needed for that facility, and that's something that the community wouldn't have to foot the bill on. So those are the updates I have. We do have a meeting this Thursday, and I just wanted to let everybody know that we had to schedule the meeting to start at 4:30. The meeting will open and go directly into non-public, so I don't think anybody will miss anything if they tune in at the regular time at 5 o'clock. I just want to let you know that it will start a little earlier. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there any thought to moving your starting time back to the traditional one, say 6 o'clock, so that people who get out of work at 5 have time to get home and perhaps tune in?
Yes, I've brought that up at a couple of meetings now. And there's discussion about in the summer potentially moving the
on the new fields, and I'm asking this because I just read about it, I guess, in the New Hampshire Municipal Association magazine. Sometimes when you put in a natural grass field, you need a couple seasons for the grass to take hold before you start using it.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the case here, or are we sort of going to fast track it?
I think the plan is to fast track it, to have it available. We're gonna do everything in our power, we're irrigating it to make sure that it stays watered and well taken care of, so that field hockey and soccer will be able to use it. But certainly, I can't foresee if it hasn't taken, and
Yeah.
number one, you don't wanna compromise the safety of the students injuring themselves, but also to have spent the money and then tear up the field. So I don't have a perfect answer for that, but.
Okay. Also, I'm on the, I guess, the renovation committee for the tech center. We've gotten, I guess, some, proposed layouts, which I guess the architect's now going out to bids to try to firm up the price of the changes and such, and that could be coming back to the renovation committee and then to the school board, I guess, beginning of August.
Yes. That is, I received an email about having that team come in and update the board at the beginning of August. So I'm anticipating that will be on the agenda then.
Barry, you got it?
I believe also, Jenny, I didn't hear you mention this, but you're part of a 4-district group that submitted an application for money for IT and computers and all of that. And that did go through. I think it's $1 million you're going to get this split up.
$1 million is divided. You're going to put me on the spot. I'm not going to remember all
Four.
four of us, but yeah, that was a very big grant that Chad, our IT director, worked on, and so that will allow for at least initially Promethean boards, if we can get them in, to be in every classroom. And the purpose of that grant was to help to be able to use technology to help learning both inside and outside the classroom.
Good.
Yeah. Last I heard, they were back ordered. So I don't know. We'll have to see. It's been probably over a month since I had an update on
Just
that.
keep an eye on, make sure they're used.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, Barry?
No, all set. Thank you, Jeff.
Keith, any questions, comments?
No questions.
Herb?
All set.
John?
This probably seem a little ignorant just because I haven't been to much for school board meetings in the recent past, but when there is, well, it's a first really, COVID funds or unexpected grant type stuff that comes rolling in, does this superintendent or the school board keep a big running wish list of projects, like a visible one that could be shared?
Oh, a visible one. I don't know. I don't believe it is on our website, but I think that's a good point. It was something I was talking to Brendan, the superintendent, about, that I'd like to have a running list of what's been completed and then maybe what still needs to be done. Because there's a lot around the district that, because of budget, has been neglected, we haven't been able to do. And so being able to have these funds to do those things, I think that's a good point.
Well, I mean,
Bring that up.
I guess kind of like a pre-CIP type of deal, but
Yeah.
I think of when we get a similar notice of, okay, it looks like all of a sudden there's $300,000 that's coming to Newport from the state for COVID, and Hunter can balance some books quick and say, well, it looks like expenses COVID related are X, so now let's look at the whiteboard with 268 items on it, and the red ones are critical, the yellow ones are someday. Something like that would be nice to take a look at.
I think that's a valid point. Ed has that list, so I don't think it would take much effort to make that public.
Great.
I just want to kind of make note of the fact that we are going to be working, I'm trying to bring a group together on the CIP. Bert, you're on that group too, I think. We want to get the school involved so that the CIP is a townwide CIP, which feeds into what was just mentioned about the wish list. I mean, so that we know where we're going to be expending things and how we can balance that for the town.
It's not just the wish list, it's critical
I know.
needs, and it's balancing them so that we're trying to keep a level tax rate
Yep.
for all.
Yeah, I was
tax
just building up what John had to say. So I'll be in touch with, I was going to call Brendan, but maybe I'll call you.
You may call me. You may call me.
Good, because we'd like to get that moving. We have a CIP, but it's one that we need to continually work on for the town, and it would be good to combine that so that we have a community CIP.
All right. Anything else, Jenna? Is there anyone in the public that would like to ask Jenna a question on school issues? All right. State your name for the record, please.
Brett Spalding Senior. Jenna, at the time of the budget presentation, the district said there would be $500,000 used to reduce taxes. That left us with $1.38, as you mentioned. So in order to cover the $1.38, how much more fund balance is being used to reduce that $1.38?
Can you repeat that for me one more time? Because
The budget was put together and came with $1.38
Right.
deficit with $500,000 of fund balance
Right.
to be returned. So you've got the $500,000.
Yep.
In order to then hack away at the $1.38, would require another $500,000. You mentioned $288,000. Is that going to be used as fund balance to reduce? And of the 404,996, is that usable also?
What is that number, the four?
That's the new state money.
Yeah, we received just under $500,000 in additional state adequacy aid.
Is that a one-time disbursement?
To my knowledge, it is, yeah.
So Jenna, can some of those proceeds be used to fill in the remaining 220?
I don't know if you can use state adequacy aid to go back to reduce the tax rate. I mean, that's,
Is it fair to say that the board could get creative and there might be some things that are in the budget that could be paid for so that it would free up enough money so that it did zero it out?
I would say that the board wouldn't get creative, but Ed would get creative. I think that would be fair.
Okay, now my statement.
If I can jump in here, extra adequacy aid, if I remember, is considered revenue. And the school district has a fixed budget that they cannot exceed.
Right.
So if you're receiving more revenue, you cannot expend above it. It would generally have to go back to taxpayers. Am I correct?
But my question is, would you have to move things around in the budget so that you're taking?
So that you're using the adequacy aid for things in the district, but
Students.
you're not spending from other
Correct.
accounts. But you still would have extra revenue, which would need to be able to roll into a fund balance for the following year or something, or return to taxpayers.
Jenna, is it your belief that we will be able to cover the $1.38?
When I spoke to Ed this afternoon, he was confident that he would be able to cover the $1.38.
Do you realize the appreciated impact of that to the community?
Probably more than you know, considering when we started this process out, we were a lot higher than $1.38. I think financially, the district has come a long way.
So we're looking at a school budget that comes in essentially level funded.
Yes.
and a town that is slightly down. So, are we gonna have a parade or a celebration?
No, because we're going into budget season. So probably not, but I mean, I think it's also important to remember that not only has the district been able to cover, hopefully, that $1.38, is the anticipation is that we also cut $750,000 out of the budget before the last budget cycle started to cover increased expenses.
Well, I should think that you would have a party when you burn the mortgage, and then when you buy the new house, you go back to where you were.
The problem, if it is.
Excuse me, somewhere near where you were, maybe.
If it is a one-time extra 500,000 more or less from the state, and we use it to reduce taxes this year, but it's not there next year,
Right.
then people forget that we were able to reduce taxes one year, but they see it's going back up to what they voted for the year before. You know, they don't remember the fact you were able to save them some money, but you couldn't repeat it because the state wouldn't help. They only look at that current increase.
And I think that extends also to when the federal grants, you know, which we have like 2 years, 3 years on, you know, we've been able to fund some positions with that. And we're gonna have some questions when those monies are up.
That has
So-
always been the case as long as I've been in this town. You
Yeah.
fund a position on a grant,
Yeah.
and, oh, the grant money's gone, what do we do now? It's like,
Right.
you've known for 3 years it was gonna, and it's just, it's
You know, I
like big
think we're trying
surprise.
to make the best of the situation now, but we have to remain cognizant and vigilant about
Mhm.
what is upcoming next year and what is upcoming in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that's best for the district.
There?
I guess I would say you're using the money well at this particular point, but we need to understand COVID money's drying up. That's a big reason that you were able to do a lot of the things that you were doing.
Yes,
So when that's gone,
yes.
we're kind of having to make some big decisions about money
Yes.
in that process. So, you know, I want people to understand that while I really think you're doing a good job with handling the money that you have at this point, and you did make that reduction in the budget, that's going to end right off.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as you can with these, say, one-time grants or short-term grants, like, you know, COVID money or such, you should be seeing if you can take care of some of your capital projects, like the HVAC you mentioned,
Yep.
and things like roofs, things that,
Yep.
you know,
Good point.
instead of having to bond or ask for an increase, you know, it helps
So-
keep your general day-to-day operation fund level.
Exactly. So there has been one HVAC improvement that's been done at Toll for the Toll Gym to improve ventilation and heating and air conditioning there.
I mean, besides just opening all the doors.
Besides just opening all the doors, yes. The projects that were put into place for the middle high school and Richards, the state had some trouble, and the state initially okayed everything, and then my understanding is they said, oh wait, we need X, Y, and Z, and so those projects are not going to be able to be completed before summer. So we are moving forward with getting everything lined up so that we can do them next summer. So.
Bert?
Jenna, is my math correct?
uh,
We got 1.875 in COVID money, and we used $500,000 of that in the movement of 3 persons and other, which is a reoccurring this year, which means 500 and 500 is 1 million of them, 1,875,000 is spent between that one issue, which runs over a 2-year period. Am I correct on that?
You know, I'm not going to be able to confidently answer that question. I don't have those numbers in front of me right now. So
But
I don't want to tell you yes or no and be wrong.
All right, wait a minute, then maybe let's see if I can simplify the question. The budget was changed by $507,000, which was 3 positions that were moved into ESSER funds
Mhm.
along with other stuff. That 507 repeats
Yes.
the second year.
Mhm.
500 and 500 is a million.
Mhm.
Out of $1,875,000 leaves us with 875.
I would agree with that.
And out of that 875, is the total project coming out of that?
I believe so.
Is the rest of the money going to be used for the normal, the abnormal things that we would do, like, let's say, the air changes, high school and middle school?
Yeah, it is, my understanding is that it is going to be used for that, but I also know that a portion of those funds have to be spent on student learning. And I don't know what that portion is off the top of my head. That would be an Ed question.
Okay. And the last question, Jen, you get off the hot seat. We have a proposal that we've received for 2 full-size buses and 1 30-passenger bus for about $250,000. Was there any paperwork supplied with that to support the purchase of those buses?
I haven't personally seen any paperwork yet, if that answers your question.
Is that being considered for this upcoming budget year?
Hasn't been discussed.
And are you cognizant that 3 times in history we've turned down leases for buses?
Yes.
That was 3 last questions.
Excuse me?
Those 3 last questions.
I'll take it as an A, B, and C.
It was a last question with an A, B, and a C.
Could I have a quick question here? Or it's not even a question, I'd just like to thank you
Yeah,
for your
can you-
service to the
Can
school
you
board.
state your name?
I'm Kate Leopold, I'm a Newport resident, and it is a thankless job, and you get put in something called the hot seat, which is why so many people in our town don't serve as a school board member. And the school is the center and the heart of a healthy community, and something that should be really supported by the community. I know we're not a wealthy community, but we're not going to get wealthier if we don't support you and support the school. Thanks for your
Thank
job.
you very much. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Or Joe D.
That is a true statement. As a matter of fact, without education, we fail as a society, and I have said right along, if we do not educate our children, we will be slaves of another nation. But in doing so, if we do not budget properly, if we spend foolishly, then we drag the community down by overtaxation, which doesn't attract businesses, doesn't attract people, and eventually puts you in a situation where the community deteriorates. So it is a balance, like it is in any budget for a home of 4 children, 1 child, no child. You have to balance and be able to pay for it. And to come forward with $4.68 projected increases is in fact like telling a community it's time to leave because you're being taxed out by spending that is not justified, when the numbers are not correct. So that all being said, education is what we have to have, and we're all cognizant of that. We also understand we've got to be able to pay for it.
All set? Anything else? All right, Jenna, thank you for coming in, and
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
anytime you're willing to put up with us, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, John.
okay. Moving on, next item, minutes from June 21st. Anyone want to make a motion on this?
Move we accept the meeting minutes from June 21st as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I will abstain.
All right. And we also have non-public minutes from June 21st. So I have a motion on that.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
And one abstention. Okay. Consent agenda. On the back of your agenda is tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion on that?
Move to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Next up is open forum. This is the opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address the board to do so on items that are not on the agenda. The public can speak on agenda items when we get to it. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to us tonight? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Dick Wenzel. I have a few questions. Thursday, I think it was, not myself, the selectmen usually have their name, a phone number, and an email, but it's not there no more.
You mean on the website?
On the website. So it's gone.
All right. I
So-
was not aware of that.
When you send in an email, apparently they all go to the town manager, but nobody can, if somebody just moves into town, they can't get none. So I'm kind of curious why all that was taken off.
It's been there right along. I got a
No,
couple
it's-
emails
it's
this
not
week.
there.
No, Mr. Chairman, there's no reason why that would have disappeared. We'll check on it, make sure.
Okay.
it's back up.
I think they did on each site, like the advisory board, Brownfield usually it was listed on there too.
Yeah,
And that's on.
could have been something that's
Okay.
glitched.
Yeah, the list is done.
We'll check.
All right, we'll look into it and get them back. We're here, working for the public, they should be able to reach us.
I was just puzzled why it wasn't there.
I honestly haven't looked for quite a while.
And I had a few other questions.
Okay?
What I would like to do is, so you understand where I'm going at, I'd like to give you a copy of this.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
You make a original request.
Right. I need this for all.
We're on the subject of correction. I'm giving you a hard time.
So, I'll let you take a quick look at that. Our legal bills in a short period of time, $1,400,000. And this particular person, okay, he has a Section 8 house right up here for 10 years. And he does a lot for the community. He employs enough people from the town. And when you hire a lawyer for Portland, Maine, to go after somebody, because that's basically what happened, because he had to go down to get his daughter in Texas. And as you can see, all the way down through, we're looking at $1,500 plus. And they, even when they try to go to court to get to break into the place, cops were there, fire trucks were there, and they're all going around. Then they found out it was no trespassing federally. So they couldn't even get in. But the person, as you see his name there, he was very not happy. And a lot of people that know it, they weren't happy. So, is it normal to hire a lawyer from Portland, Maine to go after a good citizen that's been here around and does a lot for a lot of people? He was misused, he was not even right, and all they had to do was talk to him. He had to go get his daughter in Texas. And they went as far as to break the doors to get in. He has an office there. So my question is, I hope this isn't a routine thing, because it's uncalled for. He's been around for a long, long time. So, that's a lot of money, 1.4 million, and I guess it's gonna go up some more. Now, I sent an email so you people could read it. So, this is, I'm just gonna make it short, because I gotta go somewhere. The Constitution, the federal Constitution, if there's a law, a rule, and a regulation that violates the federal Constitution, it's no good. Now, we have no trespassing, and I've been through this. We have no trespassing from the state, and we have no trespassing from the federal. So, George Hilbert, he broke the law, okay? And the town of Newport, because they also was notified not to go on that property up there, but they still did. So they also broke the law. So we'll let the federal government take care of those. So, and another thing, I have asked many, many, many times under the right to know law, and I very, very seldom get any answer at all. So, I'm running out of patience, because it would be easy to take care of all the situations. Now, the water line, there's a state law, and I gave you the advantage that I showed you some other cases. That water line is illegal. There's no question. Okay? There's no question. I gave you some documentation for it. So we have that for a problem. And then in 2012, this gentleman worked in Newport, and he went on to the Selectmen. So after 9 years for the animal shelter, and I'm going to be taking care of that separately. Because in my emails that I sent you, I hope you read them just a little bit. Because nobody can break the law on themselves when they get sworn in and under the right to know law. And I'm sick and tired of having them, who they are, I don't think the insurance is going to be paying for them. Because if you check the town insurance, and people that do that stuff use the authority, okay? You can't do that. When they break the authority, they should not be covered by the town insurance. They should have to pay their own legal bills. And I broke it down on the side. And that first item that was on there, that I sent all you people, that was my father, Aubrey Winslow. And the editor was written up on it. And I just wanted to show things don't change, because you're only talking $1 difference. And that was very clear. It doesn't have no bearing on it, but things have to change. And I think the good change part is when people are in authority and they use that authority, then they should pay their own lawyer. The town of Newport, now if you check your insurance policy, because this happened in another town near to you a few years ago, they had that problem. I know because I was involved. 2 years down in Southern County Court, the insurance company, one of them lost it, took the other one on. So, and there's no such thing as eminent domain. Federal government won't let you do that anymore. If there's a way out, then moving that water line, there's a way out. Or, you might not have to get the water line moved if certain people were a little nicer. Because I'm not hard to get along with, but it's fair, okay? And you can't take it by your domain. Federal government, the Constitution, I don't care what the state says. The water line, if it continues much longer, I want my answers to those people, the right to know law, and I'm done waiting. So I just threw a couple little things in there. And it's a sad thing when people can't get along. So I had some other stuff, but I'm gonna, no, I think I'm gonna tell you. I'll make this short. My daughter, she had the paperwork to go on the jury. My daughter didn't want to go there. So I said, yes, you should go. No, I don't want to go. She's there. So I took her into clerk of court, Superior Court, and it's all documented. So I told the clerk, I said, this is my daughter. Here's her birth certificate, and here's this. She's a female, she's a woman. You read the Constitution, the only jury people you would have was a man. And I said, she's not a man. So they checked it out, and the Constitution clearly said that. So if you had a mother or wife or something like that, they didn't have to go on the jury. It took them 2 years to change the Constitution. But my daughter wouldn't go on the jury, and they finally agreed. So that goes to show you, everybody's not right all the time.
Was that the state constitution?
State and federal both. We had state. Now, I have a lot of advantage over a lot of people. 22 years I've been doing nhexecutivecouncil.com, and I have huge following. I don't edit. If you get the facts, you make your own mind up. But it's pretty hard to understand, and that's why I put it in there. People that have been on are off, and the people on, because there's statute of limitations, but there's other stuff. Some felonies, statute of limitation don't work, but the federal law is very, very, very clear. So if they, and we had one meeting here a while back before I leave. Knoll Street, most of the people were on. Knoll Street is 40 feet right away. And I specifically showed you, had the maps and had everything there. You got 90 feet of a right of way. And I was told they're going to look into it because you only got 40 feet. And that's up there where I am. Now there's a big difference between 40 feet and 90 feet. And they were supposed to get back with me. These people that I want under the right to know law, George, there's some other ones. If I don't get them, then I'll have to do what everybody else does, because most of them don't. I'll just have the court order, and you guys are going to be paying for it, because that is a law. Very clear, and I made it again and again and again and again and again. They just do what they want, right to know law, and I waited a long time. My patience, like I said, is out. And the sad thing is, I've been here all my life. First grade school, I went in this building. Okay? And I really, really like Newport. But apparently certain people don't want to give it to you. And your assessor, he's going to have to pay his own tax bills. Because I said very nicely, we're not going to be paying his tax bills. And they're not tax bills, bad areas. And the town manager says it's only $5,300,000 in an error. So the court ordered that he gets back $216,000 plus legal bills. The town of Newport paid it. And I said, why? He's a subcontractor. He gets a 1099, and we just get nailed for, $250,000. And then the golf course, I sent the deed to the golf course. Every year we lost $30,000 because of the assessment. Every year we lost 30. Now how do you do your math? That's 300 grand. And we already got 2 something on the other side. That's 5.5. And you people just let this man sit there. He comes in here whenever he wants. He does that. He had 5 other towns. And some of the months he charged you, the taxpayers, $20,000, George did, in 1 month. And then we give him a girl, young lady, she did a lot of his work for him. She had to do the typing, she had to do this, she had to do that, she had to do this. So he was making $75,000, $80,000 a year, plus he had 5 other ones, and you were going to pay him to drive up and go back home. But in '93, he's never bid on that job. And any job more than $10,000 still is on the books. You have to bid on it. But I don't know. You had my email, hopefully that you got it, and I'm going to send another one out very, very shortly. Now, I hope everybody remembers you can have a law, a rule, and a regulation. If it does not do the federal constitution, ain't no good. That's why most of the time I use the federal constitution. I took too much time already. I'm all set unless somebody wants to ask me a question.
I just want to, initially what you presented us with the issue of the fire code, I was not happy with the way that was handled.
Thank you. Because there's a lot of other people who are very disgusted with it.
And I did contact the individual that was, I feel, wrong. And I think he's been very gracious as a result, you know, of all of this and not pursuing anything. So I was not happy with it. And, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. That's it for me. What's that? I said I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for open forum? Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
To Mary Denanger, I'm the treasurer of Edgewood Park Co-op, and I understood from Hunter that there was discussion to be had tonight about funding for the ARM money that was coming in. Not sure whether I was considered for that or whether the co-op was considered for that.
I believe we're speaking about it in a little bit. It's the local fiscal recovery.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Yep. Okay, now we're coming up in informational.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else at this point? Mr. Spaulding.
I know there's a zoning board appointee on there, but this goes to appointees, but it goes to a bigger problem. We have gone through years of planning and zoning. I started in the late 70s. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And it is so complex now that there are very few people that really understand it and abide by it. Goes with understanding. If you don't understand, you don't abide by it. And so, Jeff, as you're well aware, we had a zoning board member meeting with 7 cases and only 3 people. So what we have here tonight makes 4, but it doesn't solve the problem. So somehow, somewhere along, we have to solve the problem, or else all of the effort that was put together in making all of the planning and zoning falls by the wayside. If we can't hear cases, people won't come forward. It will fall apart. So if we really believed that it was necessary, then we must believe now that we have to fill those positions somehow. Actually, get it done. One of the reasons I resigned from the planning board was because we weren't fully manned. We were down 2 for 2.5 years. And then all of a sudden, bang, we fill it. We need that now to happen on the zoning board side. Now another issue that is somewhat similarly related. Well, I'm going to say that later. I'm going to put in what John Fitzgerald Kennedy said. Do not ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Never forgotten that. And I don't know if all of what I did was for the country or against the country as the years went by, would depend on a person's point of view. We are getting away from that now, further and further, particularly within the last year and a half. It appears that we do not respect it. The flag becomes nothing but a towel, and the rhetoric that goes along with it, what you can do and how you can do it. And Portland is a good example of how bad it's gotten. We might have expected that like we did in Watts or in the Bronx. But in Portland, where are we headed? So,
You mean,
I checked, wait a minute.
you mean
When
Portland,
I'm done, I'll let you know. Jeff.
Oregon, right, not Maine.
Excuse me?
Portland, Oregon, not Maine, right?
Yes, but I think everybody that's breathing knows we're not talking about Portland, Maine. So the effort needs to be put in to filling the positions. And with Jim Mullane's case, as you're cognizant of, what really happened was I couldn't sit, and there wasn't a quorum. His case can't go forward. So, Jeff, when I'm done, I'll let you know, please.
Okay.
Okay? So, it needs to go on the front burner. Somebody's got to move that issue from, how many things are on that whiteboard now? We gotta get to number one, whatever's there's gotta be pushed aside, and this one's gotta come in there. So that all said, now I wanna say another one, which is an admission. Through all of those years, I fought the zoning for many years, all the way through. And then finally, as an older person, I came to the conclusion of the necessity of it, and how it really works, and what it does. And that being the case, I look back and say, who the hell put all of this together? And I come up with the name Howard Dunn. So at this time, hoping he's listening, but he's probably not, I apologize to him because I gave him a very hard time when he was doing something that in the end turned out to be necessary for a community to go forward without a certain amount of chaos. And so I apologize to him sincerely over my past bad behavior. And I have come to the conclusion that just looking at it, what we looked at the other night, it works, done right. And so, that being said, maybe I'll put it in writing and mail it. But anyways, go back to the first one. Get it done, somehow.
We're trying. We can try better. You know, but
The problem-
certainly anyone who's interested in serving on zoning board or any of our other boards should contact the town manager's office. You know, find out what's available. I think it's probably on the website. That hasn't been taken down. And, you know, certainly contact the chair of the boards to find out what's involved. And the case you mentioned where we didn't have the quorum because you couldn't sit on it, we did schedule a special meeting just to come back and hear that one, you know, a week from this Thursday. So we are trying to accommodate the cases that come before us because it is critical that we support the people in this community with what they're trying to do with their properties.
Well, on a rebuttal, Jeff, you try to me is what I call an exit word. When the superintendent gave his presentation on us going back to school, I listened to his every word. I was looking for, we're going to try this, we might do this, etc. And I heard none. That changed my opinion of him from the ground up because he was declarative. It was going to be done. Jeff, you just used the word, we're trying. I would have much rather have heard, we're going to get it done, Bert.
I'm not making any guarantees.
then, who was it? I've said this before and I'll say it again, all right? We had NASA with the billions of dollars that we fed them. And then all of a sudden we got Elon Musk, who says, wow, these rockets we send up there turn out to be junk. So we're going to take that rocket and send it up there and we're going to bring it back and we're going to land it out in the ocean on the eraser of the pencil. And he did it. NASA couldn't do it. How did he do it? By having a positive mental attitude, W. Clement Stone's words, of getting it done. I can do it. We will do it. It will get done. Those positive things get things done. NASA was, we're trying. So you're in the same category with NASA now. Get it done.
Got any ideas? And I don't want to be the skeptic, but at the same time, I mean, in the public side of things, or in the, as you or I might say, in the real world side of things, show me something full staffed right now. Never mind something volunteer. You started the conversation with, you know, the country, society, whatever is, people don't care or things are going crazy the last year and a half. I concur, but I also would say that I don't have the answers for that. You know, there from here to the next meeting that's probably going on in Claremont right now, you find 20 some odd we're hiring and a dozen that say they'll pay you $1,000 bonuses if you'll come on. We're looking for volunteers. So I'd love to come up with that idea, but you know, anybody that volunteers for anything, I mean, look around. I mean, the people in this room are your usual volunteers for everything, and even we get tired. So finding some new blood, I'm all for it, but I wouldn't sit here and tell you that I got a plan. But anyone that out there that wants to be on a board, love to have you, but anyone out there with an idea on how to get people on a board, share that too. You know, it's going to take, you know, same thing it took Elon Musk, is somebody's going to say, you know what, it's me, I'll do it. And if it's not you, maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's your brother-in-law that you say, you know, he'd be good, and you just keep after him. And that's how we got some planning board members, is we just one night said, that's it, we're going to find something. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not making excuses, but it's nothing's full staff right now.
Am I wrong? Aren't it you that found them?
It was me that found them. Yeah.
Okay. So when you made your mind up that you were going to do it, as you just said, you did it.
I've gone to the well as many times as I can.
Okay. So I'm just asking others too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I can, but I don't. Why? Because I speak out and I don't want to load boards. I mean, if I pack the board, I get what Bert wants. That isn't what Bert does. I'll stand alone. So somebody else, have you done your job? Herb? Dee? Barry? Jeff? I'm going to say, I'm going to get you on that, Jeff, because you were one of the 3 that showed up. So somebody's got to take it on. It's got to happen. We've got to change it. We all know that, so enough said. Thank you.
Anything else for open forum? All right. Did you get your question answered, ma'am? About, okay. She's going to be...
She's on the, yeah.
Yeah, it's an agenda.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Board of Selectmen. Barry.
All set.
Keith, anything?
I have nothing.
Herb.
All set.
John?
Well, Bert stole my thunder a little bit, but I really, all I wanted to mention was talking to you know, Shannon McMichael and some of the other folks in town who are the, you know, the volunteers of today. You know, helping get some stuff done and done well. You know, events at the airport and you name it, things on the common. I'm very excited to see those going, but they're only a person or two. and it's volunteer, so,
That's
you
the
know.
chamber, right?
Yes.
Around the chamber.
Yep. But, you know, my quick conversation with Shannon was, you know, yeah, the car show was great and really looking forward to next year and building on that. But of course, you know, some folks come out of the woodwork, hey Shannon, how about you also do this? And can you do this over here? I'm one person, you know, so, you know, even people like that need extra help. So if there's something that people think is an exciting thing to do, also see if you can't think of an exciting person to do it, or do it with. And the only other thing is probably a you question, or maybe Paul, is one of the manifests. I didn't notice it tonight, but I saw it in my email. Was an expenditure for watch guard video. Is that PD dash cams?
Yes. Cruiser cams or vest cams.
Was that like a maintenance video, or is that new?
The last set became defective, the company went out of business, and was no longer supporting the equipment. So we had to replace it. Correct. Still last.
So they're replacing defective equipment?
Yes.
Now it's like $15,000-$16,000, something like that. So that's a one-time deal?
Yes.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
That's it? All right, sort of on the same subject, I want to bring up the community center. And how we feel about that going forward. What's that? Yeah. You want me to wait on that? I just want to speak to it briefly that, it's nice if, you know, you could find someone to fund the whole thing for us and put it up, but we need to make sure we understand the need for it, realize we have a need for it and such. I mean, my feeling is the current recreation center we have is pushing 100 years old. It was never meant for its purpose. Community center, you know, meets the needs, I think, for the next generation of people coming through Newport. It's not so much things you and I may end up using, but kids, grandkids, that sort of thing, will use it. And talked to a couple of people last week who are interested in, you know, bringing the program up, you know, forming basis for a committee. Should we keep that project alive, or? I feel I feel economically it would be a benefit to this community, so it's quite a statement, along with serving the, you know, kids and people who can't be accommodated in our current rec center. And at some point that current rec center is going to become, you know, unusable. It will be out completely.
I wholeheartedly concur that, you know, when I joined the board, I'd be the first to admit that I didn't really understand how serious the community center was to the community. And one of the first things we did was, you know, we invited a whole bunch of people in, and we had a session where we had boards up and the people in the group. It was a no-brainer. It crushed everything else for everyone involved, that the community center was the key project that needed to stay number one. And it's kind of going ahead of the program a little bit, but I look at things like this recovery fund that have, you know, 6 different things that qualify for such things. And our list, I think, is a very thoughtful list and long-term, you know, fiscally responsible things to be pursuing, which I have to give Hunter credit for. But it's very, very one-dimensional, our requests, in my opinion. And I think if our community at that time hasn't changed, I mean, that was, from my wife's research, as far back as she can check, that's been the, you know, 60, 70 years, it's been the number one project that the town has had on their wish list, was to, why don't we have an actual community center, like a real one, that meets the needs of the community for now, and not to disparage the one we have, but, you know, if the project had gone through a couple of years ago, imagine what the facility could have done for the people of the community during COVID, to have 3 or 4 times the space to congregate and do stuff, and where we just did not have that building in town. I mean, what a scramble it was just to be able to vote for the community people or the school board and that kind of stuff. So, to me, I think things like this are an opportunity to do something for the whole community, to have participation, and even if it's just a vote, whereas a water project is probably more important to certain people, but the community center is arguably more important to a lot of people too. So, long answer to your question. I'm all for it, and if we can find a way to have it not be $1 on the tax rate to build a new community center, or $2 or whatever it is, you know, something like this, or a big grant, same as building a new wastewater plant. You know, it's going to be punitive, whichever one we do. So when you have an opportunity like this, I'd say, it's like I asked Jenna, you know, had you come to the conclusion to build a field hockey field, was that number one for the school? I know what's number one for the town on the list, unless we've changed our mind, which I don't think we have. To me, this is, okay, let's go down our list. Community center still number one. Does this qualify? Sure looks like it to me.
But when given a chance to vote, less than 50% of the people that voted were in favor of it.
I would say maybe 10% of the voters would vote for this.
10%
Water
would vote
stuff.
at this.
Water and sewer?
I don't know.
Put that to the voters. See what they'd spend $1 million on.
The last time we put the community center before the citizens to vote, it was sort of a rush job.
Yes, it was.
So there was, you know, needed some better outreach. People weren't sure what was happening to the old one. You know, they were concerned about the shed for the lawnmowers down there and stuff. And, you know, we were looking at the time, probably a 60-cent impact on the tax rate. I think we hadn't gone back to it for the last couple of years because of COVID and the recovery from that and such. I think also in that time, we've had a couple of good budget years under Hunter and Paul where we've kept the tax rate level. And I think they can show us where that is the plan going forward. And at the same time, utilizing grants to take care of a lot of infrastructure stuff and such. So it's, I think going forward, given the need for the community center, plus I think we could make a good case for showing that the underlying budget of the town, they can feel confident that it will be fairly stable. And so if they choose to make an investment in the community center, I mean, it's something they choose to actually make that investment in their community for their future, for the future of the community.
I think most people wouldn't say that I'm a bleeding heart person, I wouldn't think, but I two different scenarios to me, two massive capital projects. You got water and sewer and you got the community center. On my mind, they're not equivalent or anything, but I think about, you know, if you don't do one or the other, big, you know, pipes out through, you know, towards Gilman Pond or explore a new well or one of these things. If you don't do that and there's a drought, well, we're a bunch of idiots. You know, you had an opportunity, you didn't do it. You know, we're rationing water. That's a real possibility. Option number 2 is a year from now, something catastrophic happens, or someone gets hurt, or the building is condemned, or needs a roof badly, and the kids in the community can't use the rec center. which is worse?
I think they're,
Because we're getting close down there.
they are, you're talking about two different pillars.
I
Both
I
support,
understand.
help support the community, so it's hard. I mean, either one go down and it impacts the community. So it's a matter of priorities and
Yeah.
budgeting.
And one of them, I think we bond and fix, no matter what, the water side of things. The other one's gotta be a kind of a gut check, heart thing and say, we gonna do this as a community or not? Because the rec center closes up next week, there's not gonna be an emergency relief disaster program that allows us to open it back up.
Yes, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
My name is Roseanne Gentis. I'm listening to you and I'm just wondering, does it, first of all, as you're saying it, is it an either or, one or the other, and that's the only option?
No.
And I understand the issues with the community center very well. Can you explain what the money is going to be used for the water and sewer treatment? Because I mean, that obviously affects anybody who lives in Newport, who uses public water and public sewer.
Water and sewer, I mean, we're, probably get to it a little later, but some of the issues with the water system is the fact that the pipes coming down from Gilman Pond and Pollard's Mills, are, some of them are pushing 100 years old, if not more. There's, frequent breaks up there that, and the whole system going up the hill needs to be replaced as we can afford to do it.
So are there hazardous materials going through there that's getting into people's water systems?
No,
or?
it's just age of the infrastructure. Yeah, I think some of that line dates back to like 1910 or so, or earlier.
1890s.
1890s. So it's, you could say we've gotten our money's worth out of that pipe.
going to say that.
And one of the things we're pursuing is a new well, water well, in North Newport, up past the airport. We've got a test well dug, it's good water, the capacity looks good. Next step there would be to go through the permitting process, which, costs hundreds of thousands of dollars now just to get the state to bless a new location for the well, and then actually build the well and connect it into the system. The benefit of a well up there is it's not on those 100-plus-year-old pipes coming down the hill. So if something happens there, we still have a source that's independent of those pipes.
What do you believe, and what's your basis for the belief, is the life that's left in the pipes that are there now, in the old pipes that are there now?
They could fail tomorrow, or they could be fine for another 20, 30 years. It's Todd Cartier, our Public Works Director, has intimate knowledge of those pipes and has been up close and
The other thing that we've
Personal?
also done is, we've had asset management, so we've looked at, on the water side, the wastewater drainage,
Yeah.
and, a lot of the infrastructure, it's just, it's beyond its useful life, meaning they, all right, this, when it was installed, they say it's good for 70 years or 100 years, or, so
And we're past
basically,
that time.
kind of living on, borrowed time at this point.
Thank you.
I guess part of my point was the water and sewer certainly affects everybody in town, but generally is not paid for by everyone in town. So someone that lives on
Springfield Road.
or Springfield Road or out where I do by Crow's Nest, that's, water and sewer arguably is not something that that they would expect the town to be burdening every citizen with.
But it is being used in the schools for all of the children.
That's fact.
So that your children, your grandchildren, I would think you'd be very concerned about
Yep.
the
And it's just,
nature of the water there.
Absolutely. It's just generally it's a different funding system generally. Usually though, that water and sewer generally is user-based
right. The
money.
people paying for water and sewer are the users, but when it comes time to actually bond for improvements to the system. Everyone gets to vote, those on the system and those not.
And then that's paid through the taxpayers, or
No,
that's
no, no,
paid
it's
through
paid-
the water
paid-
and
paid
sewer
by the
bills?
users.
Users only.
Yeah.
But then the community center would be paid by everybody, not just the users,
Correct.
right? So if there are many people that don't use it, they're still paying for it.
Right, but I think in long term, they would get the economic benefit of it by having a facility like that in town. It could attract more people to town. We may see, let's say, a bit of a bump in
Sure.
what real estate is worth. It's nothing that would benefit us overnight, but it's one of the pillars that creates a more inviting community that makes your home worth more. But, you know, like
I
during the
understand
past
that.
year,
Right.
you know.
If
people's-
somebody's moving in who's going to use the public water and sewer system, they're obviously going to look at that as well.
Right, and the pillar we're not talking about, what we talked about earlier, is, you know, people also look at the school system, so
That's huge.
Absolutely.
so I mean, there's a lot of things going on. We're facing an end of life on the current rec center. We've got a whole list of things that should be addressed. We actually had the architect go through and, okay, if you had to renovate it, it's literally a $3 million job to renovate that building. The new center we were looking at is twice the size back 2 years ago. The plan at that time, and still is, to fundraise through grants and donations at least half of that, and then only have the taxpayers pay for about $3.5 million of it. In today's dollars, we're probably looking at an extra $1 million given the cost of materials. But it's still, you know, compared to, did you Band-Aid the old one for $3 million, or you get donations, then build something that meets the needs of the community at twice the size for about the same money out of the taxpayer's pocket?
Right. While you're throwing out things that we discussed 2 years ago, may I just throw out for, I don't know whose consideration, the schools, the towns. There were also many, many people that were extremely upset about toll supposedly not being able to be used because it was non-functional and not safe, but now the SAU is there and preschools are there. And the reason I bring it up is because I remember when 2 years ago we were talking about the community center, that was one of the options that people were looking at.
It was one of the options, but for the town to take over toll in that gym, part of the cost would have been building a new gym for the high school, up at the high school. And I think dollar-wise, it actually came in more than...
It was the most expensive option,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, you know, figuring in parking and all that stuff, it just,
It's pretty limited there.
yeah.
And I think all those studies are still on the town website.
Yep.
So it should all be there to, you know, go back and review, and also the, you know, all the work that was done a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
Anyway, that was what I was gonna throw out for consideration. I guess we'll
Question
get
for
to it later.
your initial question about the committee, the rec committee.
Mhm.
Are you talking about reestablishing a committee to review everything, the old plan, or revise a new plan?
No, I don't mean going back and starting from scratch and let's design one from scratch. I think we have a good working plan. I would say we get a committee together, both with some of the old people involved, and we move forward from there. There most likely may be some adjustments we want to make, such to the current plan or such, but I don't think anything's come up over the past couple years that would require a rethink of the community center, except for the fact we would probably want to make sure we could use it for voting now, so it would probably be ideal for voting going forward.
Would be something that I would be in favor of.
Being on the committee?
I don't know about being on it as far as time-wise, but you never know, I suppose.
I'll make that motion. Herb's our delegate.
But I think that's...
You're volunteering for the
Smart way to
committee too?
start.
No, I volunteered for too much already. One thing that has been clouded, that's been taken away, is the title.
Is the what?
the title for the project.
Yes.
That issue was
Right, part of the parcel.
muddied the water as to what you could and couldn't do, even to the point of if it didn't go through, what would you do? Now that's gone.
Right.
Am I correct on that statement?
That's correct.
Right, part of the parcel was owned by I guess, an athletic league that no one had heard from since the 60s or so. And we went
It's
through the
over,
league.
don't raise it again.
Right. It's too late. They had their chance to step forward, and it's now basically part of the town's, on the town's list of property.
Right, the town owns it now.
Yes.
Clear, done.
We also have the establishment of the 2 new fields down at the school that are going to be used for soccer, field hockey, which eliminates some of the uses down on the, as far as the school goes. I mean, I didn't realize it's still a rec center.
Right, I think what it does, with, in the fall, with field hockey moving up to the high school, that opens up an opportunity for smaller kids to use that field down at Meadow Park in the fall and alleviate some of the crowded conditions up on the soccer fields. Yeah, if there's an empty field, they'll find it useful. All right, that was all I have at this point. Hunter, anything?
So, well, for a point of clarification, so are you revitalizing the commission? Yes?
Yes, I'm going to try to get it going.
Starting it up again?
What?
Starting it up again.
Sure.
Getting the band back together.
Yeah.
They're doing something other than mouth resuscitation. I think they're using one of those zappers that they do for heart attacks. Which one? I want to see positive here, Mr. Kessler.
I'll let you know when it happens.
480
And we'll
volts.
put you on the list for the committee.
All right, Christine.
So, nothing for communication?
No, it's probably better held for the next topic.
Okay. All right, informational, local physical recovery fund program, potential projects. All right, who's leading on this? We have a list of 6 projects here.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can start by just giving a very brief history here. As you alluded to earlier in the meeting, we have a fairly extensive list of projects upstairs that we have developed. Many of them have transferred from my office into the capital improvements plan and have been documented there for long-term planning and funding purposes. There's a lot of other operational projects and things of that nature. There is 200 or 300 of them by last count. So there's plenty to do. However, with that said, we have now been, or for some time, been watching the evolution of the conversation around American recovery funds and the very many different manifestations of those funds. There's really, I think it's safe to say that there's no single one program or source of these funds. Well, the source eventually is the taxpayers at the state level, but these funds are now being distributed in different ways in different programs. And so, if you recall, last year, the town received $153,000-ish to assist us with COVID-related matters, and we expended those accordingly. And we have received notice that the next round of funding that is coming in our direction, and they come in waves and they come from different directions and different buckets, if you will, if you think about it that way, is roughly $660,000 to be distributed over 2 fiscal years in equal halves, roughly $330,000 apiece. And those funds are based on population. So if you look at half our size, you will see that they are receiving approximately half the amount, and so on and so forth. It's clearly based on, and strictly based on population across the entire state. So there's $660,000 coming in our direction over the next 2 years, and we have included in your packet a document that is entitled Fiscal Recovery Fund and Processes. We have reviewed that with the state in agonizing detail, because these things are, as we speak, programs are changing on a weekly basis. New ones are evolving, existing ones are changing. And in anticipation of these funds coming from multiple different directions, because they're coming from the House, the U.S. House, they're coming from the U.S. Senate, they're coming from the federal government to the states, and then the states are kind of repackaging them and sending them out, and projects are being shifted from one bucket to another bucket. It's really quite a musical chairs kind of situation. And I mean that with no judgment attached, but there's lots of moving around going on. So we have received notice, as I said, about the $660,000. We've received the guidance documents that you have in front of you. And for lack of a better definition, which would take a very long time, the funding is essentially earmarked for water, sewer, broadband, and some, for lack of a better description, business recovery, business loss recovery funds.
Want me to read it?
And public health.
Yeah, so those are generally the categories. And so we've created, as Mr. Hooper indicated, we kind of created these quick start packages of projects because we knew people were going to be asking us. So we built up, if somebody called us, which they did, at noon and said, I need a list by the end of the workday, believe it or not, or I need a list by Monday morning at 10, what would you tell us? We had all that information available. And so, for instance, we gave Congresswoman Custer's office 10 or 15 projects of a variety of money at different levels and different areas, because often these projects get sequestered off to Transportation Committee, Infrastructure Committee, Public Safety Committee, and so on and so forth. So we had a variety of projects that would fit into all those
She
categories.
chose not to give us any of that.
Well, in the case of Congresswoman Custer, that's true. We were not successful at securing her support for any of our suggested projects. We submitted a similar list to Senator Shaheen's office, and we are told that that decision is pending at any minute. And there was similar to this list, but it was about 12 projects, and we quit at about $42 million worth of requests. To go back to this young lady's question back here earlier, the town has somewhere in the vicinity of I'm going to say somewhere around $190 million worth of unfunded liabilities, needs, call them what you will. A good portion of those would be characterized as water and sewer. I think the water system is somewhere around 90 million by itself, and then the sewer system is another 30 or 40 million on top of that, and then there's everything else, buildings and community centers and all kinds of other things. So about 190 million all told. So back to this project or this fund. We pretty well exhausted what kind of projects the state would allow us to spend money on. And we sugared down our list with the 12 or 15 original big capital projects to the list that you have in front of you. It looks like this. We believe that this is the list that the state would consider to be legitimate expenditures of the pending $660,000 that they want us to, they want you to make a decision on by, I believe it's August 18th, 16th, 18th. So we have to step up and say, this is what we're going to do by August 18th, or run the risk of losing the money and have it reallocated to other communities, which I certainly don't expect we will have any trouble.
So the six items on your list, north well development, with $1,900,000.
Yes.
And I think, talking with you last week, that would be broken down. We'd be looking to use these funds for the next phase of that, which would be permitting, which would be about what, $300,000 to $500,000 or so.
Right. So to your point, as you've noted, the 660 would not cover the 1.9.
Right.
So what we are recommending, and it's a little bit speculative, 660 doesn't cover any one project on this list nicely. It would be nice if something fit right into that amount to get it done, finished, off the list, and move on. But they're all too high. So what we have thought up, and Christine is here and Todd's here, and we're happy to answer any questions about details about this plan, is that effectively we will take the 660, apply it to the 800 for a portion of it, to the 800 for the Riverbend pump station. As you noticed earlier this evening, we also asked your permission to apply for a CDBG in the amount of 500. So we would combine those two funds, take care of the $800,000 expense for that pump station, take the remaining funds and use those funds to complete the engineering and testing and permitting for a proposed North Newport well. That would get us to the permitted level with specifications of a plant. And then we would be ready to put out a bid, so to speak, to build a pump station and connect that well to the water system. The expected cost of that water system right now is around $1.2 million. So then we would take that information and pursue another grant for $1 million. We've already identified one that we think would be a good match, leaving the town with about a $200,000 deficit to complete that project. Or shortfall, I shouldn't call it a deficit. So for the cost of $200,000, if we're fortunate enough to get the CDBG that we just talked about tonight, and a grant application that we would pursue in the future, would probably come from Northern Borders, and $200,000 locally, we would take two very large and very important infrastructure projects off of our list. And then actually the only thing that's remaining after that is the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant, which you know has been dragging on for years. And I'm sorry Mr. Wenzel left, but you know, much of the legal fees that he referred to were associated with our former wastewater treatment plant activities. But anyway, we would take those two big projects off. The only thing we'd have left is the wastewater treatment plant, which I think in the foreseeable future we're going to be able to finalize what's happening there. And then the water distribution system, which is just enormous. And I really don't know of any comprehensive, quick way of doing that except from chiseling away at it year after year after year. And we will always assess that system to take away the most dangerous or weakest parts of that system and tend to those first. So in other words, the pieces that are oldest and most likely to fail and create the biggest problems, we'll take care of those first and work into the more routine, just straight line distributions. But it's not going to happen anytime in the near future because the costs are just so enormous. They're in the tens of millions of dollars. So there's no real quick fix on that. We just keep plugging away. So we would suggest that you allocate the $660,000 to the replacement of the
Pump station?
of the Riverbend pump station to be joined
to by this,
whatever other grants and other funds that we're able to develop over time.
All right. And we've had other considerations, maybe
Yes.
you...
We have two entities that I'm aware of tonight that are here, hoping that they can convince you to do something different with that money.
I've forgotten your name, I'm sorry.
Mary.
Now,
Mary Jananga.
hi, you want to tell us about your...
Certainly. I am the treasurer of Edgewood Co-op. My husband's operations manager, and he unfortunately broke his rib, so he's not able to be here. And our engineer was going to be here with me, and half an hour before the meeting, he emailed me and said he wasn't going to be able to come. But basically what our concern is, Edgewood Park is a small mobile home park for over 50 age residents, most of them low income, fixed incomes. We have up to this point been on the water system for the town However, our sewer systems are, each one of us has our own septic leach field beside of the mobile home. Those are well over 50 years old and are failing. We have two that right now we have to pump at least every 6 weeks. Others are failing drastically. There is not room enough, according to new guidelines, to be able to redo the structures the way they are. So what we are trying to do is find funding to connect to the sewer system of the town. For anybody that doesn't know where we are, we're right up on Sunapee Street, right after Ruger's. We're this second mobile home park after Ruger's. The sewer system runs right past our main entrances. Because we are a co-op and owned by the members, we don't have the option to ask our members, who are mostly on fixed incomes, to increase their rent to cover the cost of being able to do this. So we have been looking for grants since we took over the co-op a few years ago. There was one grant that we were pretty excited about and thought we were going to be able to get. They came back to us after a lot of research and said, this grant is only for 15 units or more. We only have 11 units. So that put an end to that one. We had been notified that this money was available, and we were hoping that maybe some of this money could be used. We had been in contact with the town on several different occasions and said, you know, if there are any grants, is there anything that you can help us with to get this done?
Just for the record, I believe there's a copy of the engineering report that you're...
Yes,
there is.
should have copies
We
of
have
those.
all that, yeah. Yeah.
How did you manage to get your own septic systems with a sewer line running right past there? Because I thought a state law says if it goes by, you gotta tap into it.
They probably grandfathered in if the systems are 50 years old.
Yeah, the park is 50 years old or more.
Yeah.
So they were grandfathered in, I'm sure.
So that rule, as far as the state law goes about having to tap into a system, is only a 50-year-old law.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Bert?
Well, I just wanted to get your attention when you're done with your discussion here. Because
Go ahead.
I'm on Keith's side. When Sunapee did theirs, everybody, all the way out through, including right at the line, had to hook on in a store.
Yeah.
So that they would have been grandfathered also. So I believe that it all goes back to the pollution suit, and I forget the numbers for it. You may have a right to do anything that you could do before grandfather, but you do not have a right to pollute and grandfather the pollution. So junkyards lost on that. You had a junkyard, had it there for 50 years, didn't make any difference. Take it out of public use, take it out of business.
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the opinion that with the sewer line running right there, any sort of repairs or upgrades, especially if it's needed by all 11 units, should be based upon tying into the town system instead of trying to make separate ones.
And yes, that's what we're asking for.
Well, I think that's pretty much the way you'd need to go. I'm not even sure you could get permits for new individual ones from the state. As far as the cost, you're looking for, you know, the town to use part of the share of the town's grant money to hook up a private individuals to the town system. Anyone else in town, if they were hooking up to the sewer system, it would be on them to do. And I personally would not want us to make an exception for anyone. You know, if there's any way we can help get grants to help offset that, you know, but ideally, you know, if say someone builds a house, you know, pretty much it's the builder that has to pay the cost of hooking into our system. We don't go out and run a line into someone's house. So that's, you know, I'm not.
I think we understand your
Yeah.
financial situation, and, you know, I don't know if there's a whole lot that the town can do as far as taxpayers' money, because I think he's right. I think
And
that,
money coming to the town for use for all the taxpayers. You know, fixing the sewage pump station just down the street means that will keep working, so once you are hooked into the system, you're pretty much guaranteed, you know, your septic will be carried away and won't back up into your toilets. But as far as hooking up your individual units or parks, or your mobile home park, you know, that's pretty much us, you know, the public entity providing a benefit to a private individual, which is pretty much it's their responsibility. And it's nothing we can really make an exception for, because we did it for you. It's everyone who had a sewer hookup that they wanted to do. It'd be like, well, then you can do it for me. And we can't do that. So, Bert?
I don't want to be confusing, but there's two sides to every story. So now I want to take what you just said and turn it back. Honey Barges. Guess who paid for that?
I have no clue.
The Barges Mill,
Yeah.
North Newport.
Owned by the town, right?
How did the town get it? Who polluted it? The town? It was done by individuals. And they walked away. If everybody walked away out of this park and left it open to the homeless would move in there, no problem, and this section would go anywhere. So I understand what you said. It isn't my job to pay for somebody else's mistake. Wait a minute, I got that. But to say that it can't happen, it is happening with these pollution sites. So the brownfields are all caused by businesses and or other people.
So you're saying they should let their systems back up?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, does it have to go that far before we will barge in and fix it? So it needs to be entertained, it needs to be discussed as opposed to discarded. That's my point.
Are your streets public streets? Or are they owned by the cooperative?
Edgewood Park?
Yeah.
It's a public street, I believe.
Privately maintained.
It's a privately maintained street.
But the streets our responsibility or not?
No.
It's a private
road.
So, I mean, that's $90,000 out of your, you know, out of your cost. And if that's not town, that's really your responsibility to take care of that.
And let me...
As much as I'd like to, we'd all here like to help you, this is not our area. You're in a cooperative, you're responsible for maintaining that.
And I think, you know, we can offer, you know, Christine can help you look for grants that, you know, further grants that could help offset some of your costs and other, what may be available through the state for mobile home parks.
I have a question. The sewer line that runs out through there, what is the condition of that? Is that one of the older lines, or one of the ones that's in good shape?
I don't, right off the top of my head, I do not recall, but that's a fairly new pump station down there. There is some old infrastructure from Dorwell and Mill. There are two mains. There's a gravity main that runs down to the pump station for some of that area, and then there's a force main that pushes it back to the Riverbend pump station. I don't recall right off the top of my head the years.
Well, I'm asking because if they need to when they go to replace their systems, whenever that is, and they have to tap in, is the pipe itself that the town's responsible for in a good condition that I'm not asking you to answer the question so much as
Yeah,
the question
it would
is
be
just-
able to accommodate it.
Yeah.
There's adequate capacity in the main to receive the effluent that they might contribute to the system.
It's more the condition I was concerned about, is that one of the lines is gonna have to be replaced anyway.
Yeah, like, as Todd said, without looking at the asset management, we have it all documented and color coded in the whole 9 yards as to which mains are.
If and when they get around to connecting into our main, it's our responsibility to make sure we can accept it. And if, when they go down to dig in and there's a problem with our main, then we need to take care of that,
Right.
so that they can have a acceptable piece of sewage pipe to tie into. Is that pretty much right? Yeah, we'll maintain our pipes, and if we find a problem down there at the time.
Right, I understand.
That's our side of the connection to deal with.
Yeah.
Bert, you disagree?
One more on the other side, door Willen.
Who?
Door, Willen Mill.
Yeah. The people that used to color the river?
The lagoons. So to say that government doesn't go in and fix these problems is, can't be.
No. Just to clarify, those lagoons are not yours. They are the town's. The town put those lagoons in. They've always been town property. So I don't think that's a good example.
But where did the problem come from that the town did this? Came from
I
a
can't,
private enterprise.
just like we provide a sewer line for them to hook into.
And send their stuff into the lagoons, which now we maintain. The only point I want to make, Jeff, is slamming the door closed and saying nothing can be done. As when it gets bad enough, something is done, of course. So,
At this point, we can provide, I guess, some technical assistance toward looking at grants and such. If it did become bad enough that the town had to go into this, I guess, park or any other situation, had to do the hookups on our own, we would then be assessing against, perhaps have a lien against the property. It's not like if it's ignored, the town will finally step up and fix it for you. If the town steps up and fixes a problem like that, we would then look to recover our cost of doing it. So,
That's, I know some folks, friends that had similar issues a couple of years ago on, Perkins Pond, fixed income families that, had camps there forever that, all of a sudden the town said, you have to hook up to the sewer. And they're like, okay, sure. Like, well, and you have to pay for it. And it created some tremendous hardship for some of those families out there that, they're not all, millionaires from out of state. A lot of them are longtime residents that were just barely covering their tax bills. And I don't know what some of those vehicles were on how they came up with the money. But it seemed to me like there was some additional help rather than just going to the bank and saying I need a loan. I think there was, I don't know if it was state aid of some sort where it was 0% borrowing or, and I don't claim to know, but everyone along that road had to figure it out, and they did. Because the project was coming and they did it. A different situation than yours exactly, but I'm sure, Hunter and Christine will exhaust some resources to see if they can't find a way to get you some help. And if they can, then see if they can't get that thing up my road too. Would be nice. I'd love to tie back in.
We'll take care of that after lunch.
After lunch. Yeah, I'm a lot further away.
one more thing. Hunter, what is the definition that you
Wastewater is generally the waste generated by, from sanitary systems, private residents, and corporations.
Okay. Then I argued, and David Kibbe argued vehemently against the ordinance, saying that we could not land spread in Newport. And Wisconsin, if you look it up, they land spread without problems. Because science has taken over. There's no odor, no nothing, but yet we couldn't get it done here. It's kind of like saying it wasn't doable. So if we could take a certain amount of Newport's wastewater and land spread it,
Use it to fertilize the new field hockey field.
I wouldn't go that far. I'd go a little bit further, like, further out, if we could do that.
John's lawn.
There you go. Already doing it with the horse.
All right, I'm falling here on deaf ears. The point being that if you had a place to do it, if you had what was offered at that time or something else, and we land spread in this community, then you would take a tremendous load off of what you have to do with treating your waste. It is, the paranoia killed it. It is scientifically supported and done in this country, but you have to be open-minded and understand. And we were not open-minded as a community and did not understand, so we made it now illegal.
I did for years in my previous experience, farmers' fields all the time.
Yeah.
Routine. But you're correct, it's the general misunderstanding or the
But it doesn't
emotional
address
response.
their problem.
Right.
Wait a minute, if it didn't cost you so much over here, you might be able to take this on.
But they're asking, I mean,
They're asking for plumbing and everything else, and I am.
well, they're asking for road reconstruction. That's $90,000 out of this project. That's the biggest chunk of all of it.
Well, dirt,
What's that?
no pavement, just,
Well, how do you deal with reconstruction? Now, you must have had to do something in that park for keeping your roads up.
We've only been a co-op for 5 years.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we haven't had to do any road maintenance other than our regular plowing or.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure ways that we could guide you to deal with some things rather than, because I'm not a proponent of the town doing it for you, but we can help you with it in terms of engineering or whatever. The only thing we could do maybe is waive the municipal hookup fee. Todd's gonna shoot me for that. But
Then everyone else after that.
I know, Jeff, I just threw that out, but
You're gonna want the fee waived when we run up past your house.
I won't be there at that time.
We'll be right after
Good luck to you.
maintain your road.
Yeah.
can the co-op make a contract with a disposal company to do a regular route?
They can do whatever they
Sure.
want, they're a private group.
Well, yes, but put their buying power together, and the truck carries, let's say, 2,000 gallons, does 400,
Right.
400, and leaves, and then comes back.
If you're paying for a trip, might as well fill the truck up since you're already.
Yes, but it goes to 4 different entities here to get filled.
Don't ask me, you need to ask.
Are you talking like a holding tank?
No.
They're gonna have some sort of a holding tank? Because that could run into a lot of
Basically
money.
what they
So
said now.
it'd have to get out of the ground to get into the holding tank. So if it has to get out of the ground and go into the holding tank may as well have wheels on it and deliver it somewhere.
I know, I'm just
But
looking at
that-
the cost of that. 'Cause
That's not a bad, building on, I'm looking at their financial thing. It says construction of new sewerage collection system. If their sewage went into one area, and then the guy has to just come in and, use that air, pump that area.
You
I mean,
also have to get it past the state.
yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to throw things out, Jeff. Don't put a wet blanket on it, just,
Elon, I appreciate that. You know, Mr. Musk, I appreciate that. But wait, why not a tag on wheels? So once a month, come in and pump it and do a rotation. Sooner or later, you'll learn, okay, this has 4 people in it, this has 1 person in it, this one doesn't need it as often as this one. And then the truck does 4 or 5, and the co-op contributes money to do that.
to do it.
That's already being done, sir. We do pump on a regular basis. It's just that because the holding tanks and the leach field's entire structure of each one is so old, it's beginning to fail.
Mhm.
And I think we kind of understood that this probably would not be the place that we would be able to actually get funding, but at least we wanted to bring it to you and get it onto the table and let the selectmen know that we are trying to do it. We would appreciate any help we could get as far as looking for grants
But if,
that would work for us.
if you did it in phases, I'm sure you've already considered this, so. I mean, I look at that, get a station there that, you know, that instead of having each having a holding tank, not, I don't know, you can help look at that, but I mean, it seems to me rather than having individual, try to get it so you can have one massive collection area, and that's $70,000 as opposed to $235,000. So, you know, I'm just trying to throw things out to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you spend on collection right now?
On collection right now, it's about $300 per site. There are 3 sites that we have to do about every 6 weeks. The rest of us are still maintaining for about twice a year. So,
So about $600 a year for most of you, but there's a couple where it's a lot more.
right.
I don't know, we have a summer camp in Maine where, because we're close to the lake, we had to replace our septic system. And the state says you're so close to the waterfront, you have to put in a holding tank. So we have a 3,000-gallon tank. And what little use the place gets is still, we usually pump it 2 to 3 times a year. And I think we're up to $400 a pump. I am just thinking that if you have a household where it's being used year-round, the cost would be ridiculous.
Exorbitant.
You know, between Christine and Hunter, they will provide any assistance that they can, you know, help you with grants and such. You know, contacts perhaps down at the Department of Environmental Services and such. But other than that, there's really nothing we can do to assist you. Certainly not covering any other cost.
And I certainly understand that, and I appreciate you taking the time to consider it.
So we can coordinate.
Okay.
All right, good luck with it. All right. Anyone else want to speak up?
I would love to. I'm Kate LaPole I'm the Executive Director of the Library Arts Center, and I have a little handout for you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
There you are. So I fully appreciate that there are huge infrastructure needs in town and rec center needs. And I love how it was addressed within this meeting, the pillars of community. There's education, there's infrastructure, and there's community. We see our work at the Library Arts Center as crucial to building healthy community, to making arts and culture accessible to everyone, not just to the wealthy, not just to the highly educated, not just to those who consider themselves artists, but to everyone, senior citizens, children, businesses, just everyone. We see our role as building community through the arts, and we understand the importance of arts and community building in economic development. So, as everyone has had a huge year of transition, the Library Arts Center has gone through so many pivots and flips and turns as we've worked to make our programming change and shift so we can stay current and accessible to our community through the last year and a half. We went fully virtual. We did virtual workshops, virtual community events that then were created into murals that went around town and hung in storefront windows. We did all sorts of different projects, and now, as of last October, we went back to in-person programming and have been a hybrid of virtual and in-person. And we're seeing, as we always see at the Library Arts Center, we pride ourselves on our flexibility and making sure that our programs meet the community, serve the community, and add wealth to our overall well-being as a community. So we don't just do one thing. We do a lot of different things, and we're always sort of shifting gears to make sure those things are fitting. We have been doing a lot more free things this year. We see that through COVID, there's a lot more need for that. And we've also been working to make a lot more drop-in, less scheduled things that are about community building. People are so hungry for experiences in person with each other that are affordable, experiences for children to get together, for parents to get together, for all ages to get together. And as we've been doing those, it's been growing in popularity this summer. We have an outdoor events tent on the side lawn that's being used every day between the library and the art center. And we had reached out to Christine, hearing about the funding coming to the state, then to the county, and now to the town municipalities. We fully appreciate and understand the larger needs going on with infrastructure that are needing to stop bleeding. We get that. We see that as very, very important. We also see cultural development and community development as very crucial to Newport staying a place people want to live, a place people want to call home, a place people feel connected to their neighbors. And we would love to be considered for a very small portion. We didn't know how much money had been received by the town or what would even be appropriate to ask. We would leave that completely up to your discretion if it were even up for discussion. But we're looking for funds to help us continue our free programming into the coming year and to help us continue bringing more community arts experiences on a larger scale to town in the coming year. We had booked a sidewalk chalk muralist who's like a national level sidewalk chalk artist to come to Newport for the block party. That was rained out. She'll now be coming during the during the Apple Pie Crafts Fair. And not only will she be doing a large piece featuring sunflowers for the Sunshine Town and a child like in a garden of sunflowers to signify hope in the stage of growth that Newport is in, but she has started working with families and artists and individuals in town to help them design their own murals that they'll be doing in chalk on the sidewalks now at the Apple Pie Crafts Fair. Then during that time we'll also be having chalk everywhere in town for people to just jump in and do. So that's a sample of a community arts event. That one is fully funded. We did that through New Hampshire Gives. I'm sure many of you have heard of that, and we were able to fund that. But we would love to get more such experiences within the next, year cycle, such as perhaps ice carvers at Winter Carnival or that kind of thing. And so we're looking for funding to help us make that vision possible. We've been piecing things together to make that work, and we wanted to see if by chance funding from this allocation the town has received might be a possibility.
Looking at our budget just now, out of the town budget, you get $7,500. How do you do the rest of your funding?
We have about a $200,000 budget,
Okay.
which we run on, we have 2 endowments, one of which we built up significantly over our 50th year anniversary a few years back. We have sponsorships from local businesses, memberships, lots of grants, and these things pieced together with that $7,500 to make that budget possible, so in fundraisers. So we're constantly working on piecing together the funding to make our programming happen.
I'm actually amazed that it's so low what we provide directly. Where have you had shortfalls in the past year due to the pandemic and what you've been able to raise through your other sources? Or is this just, this new, these new activities broadening what you're doing to
We've been
reach
able
out?
to maintain by really shifting gears and using a lot of hustle.
Yep.
We had to drastically shrink our staffing within that last year. We did a lot of grant writing. We got a lot of different funding. We did a lot of different membership drives and pieces that made it all come together. So this is really us finding additional pieces in our budget that we didn't anticipate last year, not knowing where we were going, but not realizing how large the need for free community programming would be.
Yes, ma'am.
To the extent, listening to your question, to the extent you were considering maybe a use of COVID funds, my thought is that where the library shines is providing activities for children, and I think it's extremely important in our town for our children to have some really good outlets other than drugs and whatever else they're doing, and the library does a very nice job of providing those outlets. Maybe not necessarily hiring experts, but the programs that the children can go to, and when the library is open, it's used all the time. Not necessarily as a babysitter, but there are parents who are not home. I'd rather see the kids there than out on the street. And
This is the art center.
So we're under the umbrella of the library. We're under the same tax ID number, and our boards work in conjunction for a larger mission that is kind of symbiotic. But we're the Library Arts Center attached to the library, but it's a very similar idea. We just hung a show that has an artist, Don Collins, who you may know his brother, the electrician, Bob Collins, in town. And he is a fabulous artist, and I was talking with him about growing up in Newport and the role the Library Arts Center played in making Newport a home and making him want to stay in New Hampshire and making him an artist. It was really a neat conversation.
Certainly day in and day out between the rec center and the library and the library arts center, that's where I think most kids and their parents interact with the town.
keeps them out of trouble, which we need.
Great, good trouble.
Right.
Barry?
I love supporting the Library Arts Center, I'll say that right out in the front. For this though, when you say you want a small amount, I would want you to begin to think about what you want that money for and how much is a small amount.
Sure. Well,
so that we could take a look at that in lieu of the budget that we have here.
Sure, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I should write that in or not because I just didn't, I felt a little awkward not knowing what exactly you were working with and knowing you have very large pieces at play here that need to happen.
And also fitting it in with those, 5 or 6 criteria that they have.
Right,
Yeah.
and so we see
Which I think it
ourselves
does,
as I can't remember the exact wording of it, but there was one piece in there that we see ourselves right now is really helping to rebuild community from the breakdown it's felt, and we've all felt during COVID. So we have about a $6,000 remaining gap that is for funding for these free weekly community arts events that we've been doing under the tent. We'd like to see those continue through the year, perhaps as a free after-school weekly thing instead of having our usual. We usually have a sign up for a 4-week session. It's $30 and you come every Wednesday after school. We'd like to have it more set up as a free drop-in, maybe register online so we know who's coming, but that it's free, so that it's a different structure, of how we'd be doing it to make it more accessible to people right now and make it more community building driven. And then the other piece of that funding would be to bring another artist in residence to town, hopefully for the winter carnival, for something like snow sculpture or ice sculpture that then would have a community building component.
That's over and
to it.
above the 6,000?
No, that's what that
Within
6,000
that
would do.
6,000, or 6,500?
Yeah.
Question there?
No, it was
Yeah,
it's
you gotta
6,000 total
build
that
in
we're still
inflation.
looking to finish in our piecing this all together.
You had mentioned that some of the programs were expanding, growing. Will that affect the amount of money that you're going to need to fund those programs?
I don't foresee that at this point. The only way that might happen is if in the winter there are more restrictions needed for keeping people safe, so more limited numbers, so if we'd have to run a class or like have 2 after-school things instead of 1 because we could only have half the number of students or something like that. But at this point, we're anticipating that that would be able to maintain the growth we've seen quickly in this spring, summer season.
John, your thoughts?
I'm a lover of the art center, for sure. And I guess, feel like I'm kind of broken record tonight, but the similar question that I had for Jenna, and I know, is Hunter's cup of tea is, I like to see, sure, I mean, a small amount of money for something, okay, what? Like Hunter said, a lot of times in his world, it's, okay, we catch wind of something, let's throw these 12 items at it and see if something sticks. I think if we could get to a place where there was more consistent dialogue with the art center and the library included, of wishes, we would love to do this, and here's how do we do it. I think if I had a more clear understanding of things that you wish you could do, from my perspective, I love the ideas of doing more. For me, it would be, what are the things that might be insurance policies for the library and art center, so that if things do ever restrict or shut down, how does the library stay open next time? How do those entities still serve the community during a pandemic? Where I think that big wing of the town that makes Newport so special really struggled with that for a long time during the pandemic, and not in a bad way, but it was tough. Where a lot of those families that you know better than I do, I'm really talking about the library.
I was just going to say, we had very separate.
Really lean on that library
Yes.
for things, and all of a sudden it's gone. And,
Yeah, when the governor says everyone stay home, it's kind of
Yeah.
shuts down your program.
Right, but the school figured it out real quick. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong there, but if there were some shovel-ready projects for the library and art
Yeah,
center.
Exactly. And I have talked to Christine about those things, but I apologize for not making you more aware of them. And I could easily share our strategic plan, which is updated annually, has just been updated in the last, I think, 2 months, that was very largely overhauled with the pandemic. We had to really shift gears, and that might help make you more aware of exactly what our goals are in the next 3 years and where we're putting what eggs are going in what baskets.
Keith?
I like the idea of the art center too. I mean, it's just part of what people do,
Part of the culture of the town, and I think I've said at meetings that things opening up, Newport needs to start getting out and getting together. It's a big part of what Newport is, and the Arts Center plays a role in it. Also, I know, budget time, in the past, I think a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, when the library came in and we asked, what more do you need? And that came up about being open another night. They said, well, how much? It's like, done. We recognize, you know, that if it's open, people will be there. And there's really very little expense in the overall town budget, certainly the Arts Center. Whatever they get through the town, whether a grant or in the budget, they tend to maximize it with donations and grants and other sources. So I think, you know, any investment there gets, you know, pays back dividends.
Okay.
Hunter?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sensing a bit of a consensus developing, and if it pleases the board, given the nature and scale and scope of conversation, if it's all right with you, we'll work directly with them and we'll fill that gap.
Let me ask this question. I don't know if in accepting these funds and filling out the paperwork for it, because this is separate than, say, a new well or a new pump station, is the paperwork amount for their $6,000 going to be as much as it is for $600,000 pump station?
Well, what I was really trying to get at is since this is a thought that's kind of evolving, I'm a little hesitant to
But
say
where I was going is, you know, given the quote-unquote small scale that they ask for to work with, is this something we might consider providing out of the end of the year fund balance?
Well, that's where I was going.
Okay.
I'll work with, if it's okay with her, I'll work directly with Kate. We'll come up with some ideas,
Okay.
and we'll make sure that those get funded in some way or fashion, either through current operating funds or year end. But I'm a little hesitant to throw that into the pile on the grant, just because we don't know what it is, and I don't know what the state's response would be to whatever idea we come up with, and whether or not we come up with it by August 18th. This way, she will have as much time as she needs to work this through this season and through the year, and we'll just respond accordingly.
All right. I mean, I guess it's a case, Kate, the state may take it more seriously if you had another 0 or 2 on there.
Right.
No, can I add something?
Sure.
Paul and I have been going through all the different trainings and webinars on this, and they are very explicit in what can be and can't be funded.
Okay.
And I can't stress enough those 5 categories. I mean, if you don't fill it out right, you're out, and it goes to the next town.
Okay, so I just don't want to kind of go there.
Okay.
We're safer locally than
Yes.
treading into the state's territory.
I still would like to know what money's going to be spent on.
It would be
Figure that out.
like the weekly after-school
Okay,
program
if
that
just,
we create.
if Hunter or somebody
Yeah, we'll
reports
get
back
the
to us.
details and we'll figure
Right,
it
and
out.
I thought I made it clear in there, I'm sorry I didn't make it clear enough. It would be the weekly
Yeah,
after-school.
you made it clear, but
Plus like
I want him to
artist
report to
residence
us what
experience.
they
Yeah.
come up with.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll work up a pro forma and we'll, figure it out.
I truly appreciate that, and usually in our funding, we are writing requests and grants. This is the closest to Shark Tank I will probably ever get.
Until next time.
It's fun.
Any other
Thank you.
comments or questions from the board? Oh,
I guess just a generic comment, but I very much appreciate you, taking the time to come and raise the issue.
Yeah.
And that's, a classic case of the squeaky wheel, it just throwing it out there, but I'd love to see it, as crazy as it sounds, is someone from a different department in town saying, hey, here's an idea, what if we did this? And maybe that's happening all day, every day in his office, or in his office, or in his, but we don't see it.
All the
Right.
above.
And probably all of the above, but I appreciate it, and, if it's something that seems like the town ought to be doing, this is how you get done.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and also, as we were saying earlier about the school, thank you for the service. It's such a huge commitment to this town.
Thanks.
Good, thank you.
thank you. Bert?
The dichotomy strikes me. We're talking about a small amount of money for an amenity to the community, and a large amount of money for sewage that needs attention. kind of like washing the car when the motor's got a problem.
One's private, one's public.
I understand the difference. But still, as it's been seen here in history, when it is ignored, it becomes the public property.
Well, by having the mobile home park tonight, I don't think it was being ignored. They were exploring different avenues. So it doesn't mean they go back and say, well, we'll wait till things start slowing down.
But we should do everything we can to assist them in finding what the right solution is.
I think that's
Yeah, I
what,
agree with that.
we were looking at that, yeah. I think that's what came out of the discussion.
Yes, yes.
I'd like to also add,
But if it takes a small amount of money to get something there done, so just put it in perspective. I think the only way to think about it is not, to think about it, to deny it, is only to
We're not
begin
denying
down. I didn't say you were. I've been here for the whole conversation. I understand how it all went, Jack.
could I also add one thing? I completely agree with you, Bert, that there are needs in all these different ways. I also I always have to defend the arts. I think often it's easy to think of us as the shiny coating on the outside of the car, but we really do see ourselves as an engine to a healthy, thriving community economy. We see the work we do in the town in building health, building connections, and building reasons people like to call this home. And both, I mean, I'm not in any way saying it's more important than their issue, but I always have to speak up for the reason that we believe the arts are so crucial to community development and
And I
economic
think
development.
during the pandemic, when everyone was stuck at home, everyone realized just how important the arts and culture were to get through it. Okay. All right, thank you. So on this list, you need an answer tonight, or do?
Unless you see some reason why you want to deliberate or think about it for the next couple of weeks, but we'd prefer not to dance around with the August 18th.
Basically, you want to go with the pump station and the well?
Our recommendation is that the town voice its intent to expend the full 660 and change to the replacement of the Riverbend pump station.
Offset by grants.
To the degree, and/or to use other grant funds as necessary. And the reason I make that differentiation, because each grant comes with a different set of criteria and conditions, and that we have to allocate it in a way that is acceptable to the grant. So we would expend the full 660 first. But on the other hand, if we got a CDBG grant, for instance, if I'm correct in my memory, the CDBG can only be used for construction. So we would use that CDBG first and then use the 660 second, because that would allow us to use it for both construction and for planning and permitting, and then to pass the balance on to the wastewater treatment plant planning. So there might be some shifting around and movement, but the intent would be to fully expend the 660 first priority, the wastewater pump station on Riverbend, and secondarily, whatever funds might be left over for the
Well permitting.
for the further engineering and permitting of the well in North Newport.
Is that acceptable to everyone?
Does that sound about right? Yep. Yep.
Did we get any, I'm just looking at this as a complete outsider, but there's not any sort of hierarchy of point system or anything,
No,
you
as
know?
long
It's ours.
as you fall within the 5 categories and you have an explicit budget and explanation, you get your money.
Right. There's no further oversight. They just want to be able to, actually, they've gone so far to say, once this allocation is made, the state is stepping out of the picture, and we are then accountable to the federal government. So they just want to do their due diligence to say, we sent them the 600, this is what they were going to do with it, and they're going to step aside at that point.
Is this the Senate aspect, is just total
This is
federal government?
Yes, go for money.
So that other, when you talked to Shaheen's group, that's still pending. So that could help us a
And there
lot.
is a possibility policy that any money that isn't claimed by other communities goes back
Goes
into the
back.
pool, and we could get some of that as well.
Super.
So before you leave the topic, though, I do want to tell you that we as a staff, remain of the opinion that there's probably no single greater, I said this when I first got here, and I'll say it probably as I leave, there's probably no single greater that the community could give to itself than a community center. It will change the dynamics of this community, it will change the quality of life in this community for everyone who chooses to take advantage of it. We don't believe that these funds can be used for those purposes, unfortunately.
All right, so that's consensus.
So I
All right,
think,
do you need a motion on that?
yeah, I think we'd like to have it on the record, if you don't mind, so that we can, clearly say that that was your decision.
Larry, you ready? Make the motion?
Sure, I'd move that we follow the guidelines for funding opportunities dealing with wastewater treatment. What else? I zoned out after a while.
Pumping station?
Pumping station.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Riverbend wastewater treatment plant pump
Yeah.
station, wastewater pump station.
Yeah, and that we move to approve the spending of that money for those actions.
Can I ask one?
Does that make any
minor-
sense?
Yeah, can I ask one minor adjustment?
Sure.
And that's our primary purpose, but secondarily also approve any funds that might be left over, which I don't anticipate, but we might have to shift some money around, to be applied towards the further development, permitting, and engineering of the North Newport well.
Okay, what he said.
I would second that.
Do we need to specifically authorize you to do that, to use those funds?
No, I think all we're looking for is your authorization to tell the state that that is what we're
Yeah.
going to do with these
We
funds.
gotta tell the state by August 18th.
18th,
Right.
yeah.
And they're just going to cut us a check and mail it to us, and then we're on our own.
Right.
Without this grant, where would that Riverbend pump station be in the timeline of replacement?
Probably pretty close to the top.
Like critical, like gotta do it next year no matter what?
In the sewer rate study, it was in the next 2 years. I think it was the next major project other than North Main Street.
Right. That's what the study said, but what do you think the real truth is of when we might do that?
Well, if this money wasn't here and we got the CDBG grant, we would raise the additional funds ourselves and do it.
Yeah, I think where would it be as opposed to how would we fund it? I think if money were not an issue, of course, the wastewater treatment plant itself is the big 900-pound gorilla in the room. And we're working on that through other funding sources. But in the sewer world, Todd, I don't know that outside of the wastewater treatment plant, I don't know that there's another more pressing sewer element.
No, it would be that one. It has not happened in my time here, but I know that the station has flooded. So when the station floods, it's a can that you open the top and you go, it's almost 30 feet down on the ground. That's where all of the electrical, all of the controls, everything.
Happened once since I've been here, where we had to give notice to the businesses on that side of town to shut down. So, I think in the realm of what would we do first, it would probably be the wastewater treatment plant. What could we do first? It would probably be the Riverbend pump station, only because the numbers are so different in the sewer world. We don't disagree with you that if everything was wide open and we had, what would we do with the wastewater treatment plant? The community center would be first and second, second and first. We'd be right up there.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm sure that the due diligence has been done, on the calls and the different things that you've been involved in that I haven't, but I'm here to be brought up to speed, basically. So, in my reading of it, of course, I'm looking at it through the lens I see things. It looks like it's fairly well open to interpretation. That's why I asked for a point system or anything, because it really looks like a call it whatever you want for the most part. And, public health expenditures, an option, which is pretty cut and dry.
You're saying for the community center?
No, for anything. Address the negative economic impacts of COVID-19. Okay, anything, build a new art center, whatever, we needed that. Now we realize that, or whatever. Replace lost public sector revenue. That'd be a tough one to swallow for a lot of folks. But sure. Provide premium pay for essential workers. I don't know what that looks like, but I know in Newport, pretty much everybody was essential in the last year, and feeling at this point like they've been set on fire for the last year and a half. And, unlike a lot of, city areas around the world, maybe, our demographic here in Newport is pretty damn essential. Our staff here in town and staff where I work, and staff at our biggest employer, they might see something like that and be like, okay, so there's an opportunity to provide premium pay for essential workers, and we're going to put a pump station in, okay? Okay. And then last on the list is invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Does everybody in town have high-speed internet access? I don't know the answer to that, but if not, maybe that should be higher on the list so that next time there is pandemic, there's ability to communicate, or how many kids couldn't connect to remote learning last year. I don't know. But I don't disagree with the list. I'm trying to understand some of the backroom batting stuff around. While I've been an essential worker for the last year and a half for 2 different businesses, I missed all these conversations that happened. So what didn't make the list?
So, well, there's lots. The list we gave you is the one that we vetted, that we believed would pass muster with the state without question. To your points, some of the premium pay for some of the very essential workers that didn't miss, the Newport town offices didn't close a single day.
Right.
There are offices all over the region that closed and have been closed for the last 15 months. So there's no question, I can't question the veracity of your comment. But as part of the initial funding that we received, 153.6, whatever it was, so a good portion of that did help to pay, and we did pay some premiums to some of our fire and police staff. Was it enough? Probably not. Depends on who you ask.
Sure.
Broadband, I would have no idea. I have no money. I have no concept of what it would cost to provide that, in what areas and what circumstances.
But weren't you looking into that? That was something you've mentioned before.
Yeah. But I can't say what I would do with $660,000. I don't have a plan in place. I can't say, well, with this money I would do this. And so it's premature. And I think the state is looking to say, what are you going to do with it? And it has to be done by what's the deadline? A year?
2024.
May 24th?
No, 2024.
2024. So it's too conceptual at this point to try to figure out how would 660 do a lot of that, or it would do from here to the corner. I can't measure the benefit of that. So there's lots of unknowns, and so we did talk about many of these things. Christine and Paul secondarily, but I think Christine was the lead on most of the conversations, and the state has kind of said, no, that's not what we have in mind, and this is what the categories that we want you to pay attention to.
So this passes muster as far as you people feel in terms of submission of the grant and getting the money?
Correct.
Yes, there'll be no question
And the
about it.
goodwill behind it.
Yeah.
That we get additional funding.
Okay.
So there is the benefit of the spin-off on this. If we spend this 660, we can then, we're hoping that we'll be successful in getting, using it as a match towards other money, piggyback pyramiding that. Now, I can't tell you that's going to happen, but that's our intent, and that's what we're intent on trying. So I may come back to you in 6 months and say, we got no funding for the wastewater pump station. We're going to use the 660, and we got to come up with another $75,000 to finish the project ourselves. That could happen,
Mhm.
but our intent is to try to augment that difference with other grant funds. So, you know, I don't, given the short window here that we have to respond in, these are all home runs, and gives us all a step forward. We think it helps secure the veracity and the reliability of the wastewater system, supports businesses, so we can help to eliminate the prospects of calling people up and telling them they gotta send all their employees home for the next few days while we look for parts, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so. But are there other combinations? Absolutely. I mean, there's other ways to approach this that could arguably be just as important.
A short window.
Yeah, I mean, we've got basically, a month to figure it out, and a little over a year to finish it.
That's a reasonable completion timeline on upgrading that pump station by 2024?
Yeah,
Actually, it's, money needs to be encumbered by 2024, and all dollars have to be spent by 2026.
Gotcha.
Our engineer, in my conversation with our engineer, says they will need a month to prepare the RFP, a month to secure quotes, a month to review, and 4 months to install, assuming that the parts are available. So if there was a perfect world, in 7 months it would be done. My guess it'll be more closer to a year, 18 months, by the time we find the parts. Which is a major issue with all the grants that are coming out now, because they all have their typical timelines, and we're all saying, no. Those timelines don't work. They were tough under normal circumstances. But now, finding the staff to engineer them, design them, and all that sort of stuff, much less order the parts, is a different story.
Good.
So we're good?
Well, we gotta take a vote.
Yeah.
We gotta wait for the chairman to come back.
You're the vice chair.
Yeah, that's
We can skip
right.
Jeff.
You can take over, John. Oh, here he is, okay.
I'll stop.
All day,
I was just getting warmed up.
Don't let me stop you. So where are we at?
We've got a motion and a second.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. All good?
All good? Thank you.
All right.
Just, I wrote it down, I forgot to mention it, but maybe probably worth seeing if you can put Mary in contact with that AARP grant lady.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of AARP, I wanted to let you all know today I got the email that we were accepted into the network. So they'll be presenting you with a certificate in the coming weeks. So we are in.
Good.
And I got a very nice email about how we're setting the path for all of western New Hampshire, so.
I think I can. Good. They might have to
But yes, that's a good.
take a 5-minute break for us to sort it out.
All right, moving on. RSA 674:39-AA, title LXIB, zoning regulations. I don't know my Roman numbers that way, but verified as.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Voluntary merged lots. All right?
64, I think?
64.
64 is what I'd say, yeah.
Yes, 64. All right. What is this about?
Well, I guess I asked for this one.
Yep.
Bert had actually presented it at the planning board the other night. This is something that was voted in back 2010, 2012, somewhere around there, by the state legislature, and it involves involuntary mergers that happened many years ago, properties in town. The door is closing December 31st this year, and there's a possibility that we're going to see some of these come forward. The Board of Selectmen, being the governing body of the town, will be involved in this as well. The planning board had some issues with the wording, so we asked for a legal opinion on
Wording of what?
as far as the the lots, when they became merged, the laws were different. And if you separate those lots back to the time before they were all put together into individual lots, the question was the legal, how do I put it? The legal interpretation, do we go by the rules that were in place then? Or do we hold people to the zoning and everything else that's in place now? And there were a couple other legal issues that I don't recall exactly.
Meaning, if a lot prior to being merged was a size smaller than what's allowed in that zone today, and it was merged, and the merged lot is adequately sized, is there an issue with separating that merged lot back to what it was originally? Because it would be non-conforming in the zone it's in.
To some degree, it would be, you know, if you're going back and producing non-conforming lots.
Right.
And somebody like has built a house on 3 of those lots, then do you change, does it have to go back to the laws that were existing? In other words, back before there was zoning laws. Can they just keep their house there and leave the property as is? Or do they have to come back, to the town and merge those lots that the house is sitting on?
Well, that's the problem. They've already been merged and they want to break them into smaller lots, which means the house may be sitting on a lot smaller
It may be
than...
sitting on 3 different lots.
I would say let's wait to see the individual case when it comes forward.
So we were just
Because if a house is straddling two merged lots, it's almost like, why would you want to separate it?
Yeah, well, we were just looking forward to a legal opinion as far as what
And
standards.
And
what
that's why
standards
our
do we
legal
follow?
costs are so high.
There you go. Yeah, too bad Dick wasn't here.
It's,
But that's why I brought this forward.
Yeah.
I just wanted a heads up. that
people
we
have
might
5
see some of
months
these.
to
Yeah, 5
bring
months.
these forward to us.
Yes. The window closes December 31st.
Okay. Bert, do you have...
Yeah, I guess,
Did I get it right, or did I almost get it right? Without going into too much detail.
no, you're all right. It becomes a very complex problem. Jeff, you asked me a question when I had a lot unmerged. And as to why, number one, I don't have to tell you, because the burden of proof is on you, that you had a right as a municipality to do it. And the only way you can do it by 6:30, 6:49, whatever it is that the landowner asks you to. And you have to prove that. So in my case, you can't prove it. The deeds prove it. And in a case that came forward to us, I went all the way back to 1965, and in it lists every deed, every law. Very common. Lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Keith Sayer bought it from Barry Connell in 95. Lot 1, 2 through 10. Jeff Kessler bought it. All the way through the chain of title up to now. The lots have been specifically stated on the deeds. They're separate lots. They're piano key lots, 24 feet wide. Doesn't meet today's zoning. Frontage alone would be only 24 feet. But it's a legal lot. you can't take it away. There's nothing you can do. So what needs to happen is the town has to go to an attorney and find out just exactly how we handle them. They handle them right. Without that, this would be a calamity. Now, you might say, as you did, got 4 or 5 months left to go. Well, I guess we planned for snow, I think, and we get plows ready and snow blowers ready and et cetera. You might want to find out what should happen and how it should happen. 250 lots in one place. Now, I could draw something for you that might be helpful, so that you can get an idea of what it would be. This is my property. And I divide it into, probably ought to get one rights here. All, okay, you got the point. A lot of lines.
Yep.
And I asked for it all to come back. I'd have to do it as individual property owners that own it. But if I own A, B, and C, and you've treated it as one lot, and my house is here, that's okay. This lot stays, and this lot stays. But if I built over the property line, that's the one exclusion, the way you have to separate the lots. Because I then have recognized that I took the lot line away. So building on the line or over the line voids my ability to go backwards or back to where it originally was. Multiply that by 250 in one place. So please find out from the attorney how he looks at it. I have found, I went through the book tonight, found only one case, which is Roberts versus Town of Wyndham, 165, 186. That's the New Hampshire Supreme Court number. 165, 186.
All right. Where was there 250 lots?
Where do I get that?
No, there is a bunch of real, say, shotgun
It
lots.
just seems like that you're referring to one particular.
First, second, third, and fourth.
There's
that
some
got
other areas where there's
merged
some
to-
long skin lots.
Right, but there wasn't a whole big ton of lot mergers there, was there? Involuntary mergers there?
Yeah, every one of them. There may be some, and I may be wrong, maybe I should have said everyone, I believe, get that word in there, I like that escape word. It came to our attention never mind, let's leave the case out of it.
Okay.
There are 5 lots that were pre-done.
Right.
And they've been taxed as one, treated as one, tax map as one. All I have to do is by December 31 say, hey, I want them all separate. You have to separate it.
Right.
Unless I've disrespected the property.
Right.
And that means the lot that I had that was this is now that. So the question comes, and I'll use my example on this. I asked you to bring back 8 acres that were mentioned in the deed and a 2-acre plot that was mentioned in the deed. All right. So now, if when that 2-acre lot comes back, I want to build on it, So I've got this lot, and and do I have to have 200 feet of frontage or 300 feet of frontage, whatever it might be in that zone? It's a grandfathered lot. So, in that case, I believe that the building has to comply. You can't deny the access. I can sell that lot to you, Jeff Kessler, and how are you going to get to it?
Why would I buy your lot if I can't get to it?
Well, I bought it, and I could get to it, but the law allows me to get in a position where I can't get to it, if in fact you say I can. If it was grandfathered, the right to get to it is grandfathered, and I guess we could argue in court, and that's why I want to read that court case, is maybe I just hoof it, park down alongside the road, pick the groceries up in a cart. So there are questions that have to be answered so that the planning board and zoning board can act appropriately. There'll be some light of day here somewhere.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks for the heads up.
excuse me?
Thank you for the heads up.
Well, I don't know, it's kind of more like head and guillotine maybe, depending on what happens. Will we get the legal opinion is the big question. That's what's necessary now. And if it's not necessary, I guess that would be a totally different point of view, but I would... The right thing to do is get some questions answered. So does it take this board to consent to that?
I'm not sure what the question is.
It sounds like planning board's already asked for nothing.
Christina was gonna pursue that with legal.
Excuse me?
I think Christina Donovan was gonna pursue that with legal.
Yes.
Give an opinion on that.
But does that give it the authority to give us the answer that we need that would be in depth as to how we act should this happen? And what happens in my case? We're not talking about anybody else, talk about my case. I want a building permit to build on my 2-acre lot.
I don't know how in-depth the answer's gonna be.
So your 2-acre lot doesn't have any road frontage?
That's correct.
Is there a right of way?
Excuse me?
Is there a right of way?
There's nothing.
So, I remember there were a meeting there, a meeting or two ago. The guy was looking at how the fire department said he's gotta have a road by a certain standard for fire equipment. If you have no access to a lot, would that, I mean, you wouldn't even get a permit to build.
That could be right. But it could also be wrong. If I have a lot, I have a grandfather right to that lot, and the law has clearly said that. How do I get to it?
I'm gonna prefer to wait until we have the actual case before getting legal counsel instead of waiting, or
Read my
instead of
lips.
doing a hypothetical.
Read my lips, Jack.
Can't read that far.
I'll put your glasses on.
He didn't swear, I don't think.
So my recommendation would be to do your best to clue Hunter in so that he can direct or take from Christina some due diligence on whatever it is that you're referring to.
Okay, and he makes the decision.
Or on soliciting legal opinions, certainly. Yeah. I would feel more comfortable if there is a situation that you think deserves attention. I would feel, just speaking for me, I would feel more comfortable you bringing that to Hunter than to Christina.
Well,
to pursue.
Well, it's I didn't bring it
Yep.
either. But I was, but when it came, when it raised its ugly head, then it got discussed. And appeared to be maybe getting discarded. There were questions that need to be answered so that the right thing is done. And
That deal with policy?
I didn't ask for it on the agenda here. I stayed for the show here.
I was hoping that
Is that policy?
as far as.
Are you going to be changing policy?
I don't think it's a policy, no.
Okay.
It's probably
It's
an interpretation of the law that
Okay.
was made.
And you're asking
Giving us
for
some
clarity.
direction. Yeah, giving us direction on
Yeah.
how to
Keep going, boy.
implement it. I mean, now hopefully, like Bert said, prepare the snow plows and hopefully we don't get a blizzard. Maybe we'll get a flurry and it'll be done with it.
Probably get rain.
You gotta be ready.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
You heard him. Take care.
I heard that. I'll take a note.
All right.
He didn't say he'll try, he said he'd take care of it.
He said he'd take care
Isn't
of
that
it.
what you asked for earlier?
Another Elon Musk guy.
That's clear.
All right, let's move on. Appointments, zoning board of adjustment. We have a,
Move that we accept Christopher Whalen as a full member to the zoning board of adjustment.
Second.
and I would ask you to modify that for a term ending.
Term to expire June of 2024.
Yes.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining. Next up.
Okay, one more thing.
Nope.
I just read this. So you've got me and two others, you've now got three, all maturing in '24. Did you consider that?
Nope. You with it
I think I read
3
that
years.
on the
Give him a 10-year
list.
term? We give him a 10-year term?
Nope, we'll deal with it in 3 years.
That's a good point, though.
I think three's the maximum sentence,
Yes,
isn't
it
it?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to give him any less, Bert.
All
We
right,
don't want to give him any less than 3.
let's move
Mike
on.
Burt.
Application for appointment of David Burnham to a 3-year term to expire June 2024. A motion?
So moved. I love to say that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Herb. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I will abstain on that one.
All right. Next up, appointment to the Conservation Commission of Jeff Johnson, full member, 3-year term to expire June 2024.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.